Hey guys, tonight we are journeying to the darkest, most primal corners of our own history, to a place where we were not the masters of this planet, but just food. Imagine, we are standing on a dusty plain in East Africa. It's 2 million years ago. We are not the masters. We are not even hunters. Before you lies a vast, glittering lake, but you don't dare go near it. Not yet. Before you, your small family group huddles. You are barely 4 feet tall, armed only with a sharp rock and your wits. You are food. From this moment, your ancestors were locked in a desperate struggle. Over millions of years, they were stalked by monsters, shaped by fear, and filtered by a daily, terrifying test. Make one mistake at the water's edge, and you are erased from the future. So what was that monster? What was the apex predator that taught us fear? Was it the lion? The bear? Or was it something bigger? Something waiting? Thanks to a series of stunning fossil discoveries in the very cradle of humankind, tonight we will piece together the clues and identify the single largest animal to ever hunt humans. Frankly, if you were dropped here in the Pliocene without a time machine, you wouldn't survive long enough to even see the thing that ate you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That small click sends a big signal to the algorithm. That long-form, serious educational content still matters, and to me, it's an incredibly meaningful show of support. Thank you so much for helping keep this channel going strong. It always fascinates me to see where you're all tuning in from. Let me know in the comments where you are in the world and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We begin with what seems like a simple, almost mythic question. What is the largest animal to ever hunt humans? It sounds like the setup for a tall tale, but the answer is real, and it's written in fossilized bone. But before we can find our monster, we have to clear away the traps. And the first trap is the word human. What do we mean by human? If you mean Homo sapiens, our own species, you and me, well, we've only been on the scene for about 300,000 years. That's a blip. The predators that hunted us in the Ice Age were terrifying, and we will meet them, but they weren't the biggest. To find the real answer, we have to widen our definition. We have to go back to the Homo lineage, to our small, brilliant, and utterly vulnerable ancestors like Homo habilis, the handy man who lived over 2 million years ago. Historians still argue whether the line should be drawn at Homo or if we should include Australopithecus. But for our journey, we're focused on the lineage that led to us. This is our family tree. The second trap is the word hunt. This is crucial. We have to disqualify animals that kill in self-defense or by accident. A modern-day killer whale might tip an ice floe to get at a seal, and a human might be on it, but they don't hunt us. We are not on their menu. We are looking for a true predator, an animal that saw our ancestors, sized them up, and decided, lunch. You might be thinking of the great white shark. It's a perfect killing machine, an apex predator of terrifying size. But here's the thing. Almost every documented shark attack on a human is not a hunt. It's a case of mistaken identity. We have scientific evidence from the forensics of the bites themselves. They are test bites. The shark, expecting a fatty, blubbery seal, takes a bite of you. A bony, stringy, neoprene-wearing not a seal. The shark almost always lets go. It's cold comfort for the victim. but it's not predation. It's a terrible, tragic mistake. As a quirky or perhaps just grim tidbit, surfers on their boards look almost identical to a sea turtle or a seal from below. So, what about the largest land carnivore, the polar bear? A magnificent 1,500-pound predator. They are one of the few animals that will actively stalk and hunt a human. But while they are the king of the ice, they are simply outsized by our true contender. No, the obvious modern answer, the baseline for our entire investigation, is a living dinosaur. An animal that has perfected the art of the ambush for over 80 million years. The largest modern predator that regularly and systemically hunts humans is the crocodile. It is a mainstream historical fact that in parts of Africa and Australia, the saltwater and Nile crocodiles are the apex predators, and we are, to them, just another mammal. We come to the water's edge, just as our ancestors did, and the crocodile is waiting. But our question wasn't, what's the largest today? It was, what's the largest ever? The monsters of today are just the echoes. They are the survivors. To find the real answer, we have to rewind the clock. We have to go back past the Ice Age, past the dawn of Homo sapiens, to that 2-million-year-old lakeside scene. We have to go back to a time when a different kind of crocodile was waiting. A crocodile that would make a 20-foot modern giant look like a pale imitation. You see, the modern crocodiles that haunt our nightmares are just the baseline for this story. They are the living proof of concept for a hunting strategy that has remained unchanged for millions of years. Wait, wait, wait. And then explode. The king of the modern crocs, the one that holds the title of the largest living reptile on Earth, is the saltwater crocodile, Crocodylus porosus. This is the titan of the Australian and Southeast Asian estuaries. They regularly exceed 20 feet in length and can weigh well over a ton. They are masters of the ambush, equally at home in a freshwater river or miles out at sea, and they are infamously, terrifyingly territorial. They view anything that enters their water, be it a cow, a shark, or a human, as either a threat or a meal. Their power is legendary. As a quirky tidbit, consider the famous case of Sweetheart, a 17-foot saltwater croc from Australia in the 1970s. Sweetheart became notorious not as a man-eater, but as a boat-eater. He would aggressively attack small fishing boats, ripping off outboard motors and biting chunks out of aluminum hulls. He wasn't hunting the people inside. He was trying to kill the noisy metallic intruders in his territory. While this is a strange, almost humorous example, it gives you a chilling sense of the raw, indiscriminate power these animals possess. If they can vaporize a propeller, as one witness put it, what chance does a mammal have? But for the sheer, documented and terrifying reputation of hunting humans, we must travel to Africa, to the banks of the mighty Nile. Here we meet Crocodylus niloticus, the Nile crocodile. While slightly smaller than its saltwater cousin on average, this is the species with the most prolific and grisly track record. For thousands of years in civilizations from ancient Egypt to modern-day Burundi, the Nile crocodile has been the monster in the water. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact that blurs the line into modern mythology. The story of Gustav. Gustav is, or perhaps was, a legendary giant Nile crocodile living in Burundi. Rumors claim he is over 20 feet long, weighs over a ton, and bears the scars of countless encounters, including, allegedly, bullet holes. He has been blamed for the deaths of hundreds of people over the decades, becoming a local bogeyman, a real-life monster. Scientists who have studied him suggest he is simply a very large, very old, and very territorial male. But to the people who live along the Ruzizi River, he is far more than an animal. He is an echo of an older, more dangerous time. But the reptilian threat isn't the only one. Our ancestors, and indeed we ourselves, have also faced the nightmare predators, the great cats. The most famous case, of course, is that of the Tsavo man-eaters. In 1898, during the construction of a railway bridge over the Tsavo River in Kenya, 2 male lions began to systemically hunt the construction workers. For 9 months they stalked the camps, dragging men from their tents, night after night, in a reign of terror that brought the entire British Empire's project to a grinding halt. Historians still argue whether their behavior was a freak occurrence or something more practical. We have scientific evidence from their skulls, now in the Chicago Field Museum, showing both had severe dental disease and jaw injuries. The injury hypothesis suggests they were in too much pain to hunt their normal prey, buffalo and zebra, and the slow, soft-skinned humans were an easy, desperate alternative. This theory of opportunity continues today in the Sundarbans, the vast mangrove forests of India and Bangladesh. This is the only place in the world where tigers are still the undisputed apex predator, and humans are a regular part of their diet. The scientific evidence for why this happens is fascinating. One prevailing theory suggests the high salinity of the mangrove water, which the tigers are forced to drink, leads to kidney problems and hypertension, making them incredibly irritable and aggressive. They become problem tigers, and a human in a small fishing boat is a very easy problem to solve. Lions, tigers, and crocodiles. These are our modern-day monsters. They are the largest animals that still, on occasion, hunt us. We have faced them, and they have shaped our fears. But here is the problem. As terrifying as a 20-foot crocodile or a 500-pound lion is, they are not the largest. They are the survivors. They are the descendants. We are still just setting the baseline. The real monsters that hunted our ancestors were in a different league entirely. These modern man-eaters raise a fascinating and disturbing question. Why do they do it? Is this normal behavior? For the vast majority of predators on this planet, the answer is a definitive no. Humans are, frankly, an unnatural meal. We are not a typical prey item. We are bipedal, we don't smell like a deer, and we're often noisy and travel in groups. Most animals, when they encounter a human, rightly classify us as weird, loud, and probably dangerous. They leave us alone. So what happens when they don't? What creates a man-eater? The most common and perhaps most comforting theory is the injury hypothesis. This is the idea that the predator is old, sick, or injured. We just talked about the Tsavo lions, and this is the textbook example. We have scientific evidence from their skulls that they were suffering from severe dental abscesses and likely a broken canine. Historians still argue whether this alone was the cause, but the logic is sound. Imagine you are a 500-pound lion, but every time you try to clamp down on a struggling 2,000-pound buffalo, the pain in your jaw is agonizing. You are starving. Then you see us. A 150-pound, soft, slow-moving railway worker. No horns, no thick hide, no desperate fight. Suddenly, a slow, weak human becomes the only viable meal on the menu. The predator isn't a monster. It's a patient, desperate, and starving. This leads directly to the opportunity hypothesis, which puts the blame, in a way, on us. We create the encounter. We force the issue. A tiger in its mangrove forest is perfectly happy eating wild pigs and deer. But then we build a village right at the forest's edge. We let our livestock, essentially a dinner bell for predators, graze in the open. We build a railway through the middle of a lion's territory, as in Tsavo. We wash our clothes, bathe, and fish in the exact same spot on the river, every single day, where the crocodile lives. We are, in essence, creating a pattern for the predator to observe. We are the ones who are out of place, not them. We create the opportunity through our own predictability and encroachment. Then there's a much grimmer and more controversial idea: the acquired taste hypothesis. This is the notion that an animal, perhaps by chance, gets its first taste of human flesh and likes it. This was a common, almost paranoid, fringe tidbit in 19th century British India. The fear was that a tiger, after scavenging a human corpse from a battlefield or a poorly managed graveyard, would suddenly realize what it had been missing. It would become a shaitan, a demon, actively preferring this new food. While modern science finds this a bit dramatic, it's not entirely without merit. A predator is a creature of calorie counting. If it learns that a human is an easy, high-fat meal, it may begin to prefer that meal. This bleeds into the final and most chilling theory for land predators, the "mom taught me" hypothesis. A female tiger, perhaps old or injured herself, starts taking humans. Her cubs, watching her, learn. They eat what she eats. They learn to identify the sound of a human voice not as a threat, but as a potential meal. The behavior is passed down. The man-eater designation is no longer an anomaly. It's a tradition. This has been observed in some big cat populations in India, where a single, specific lineage of tigers is responsible for the majority of attacks. But here's the problem. All of these theories, injury, opportunity, acquired taste, learned behavior, they all frame man-eating as an aberration, a break from the norm. And for lions and tigers and bears, this is overwhelmingly true. But what about the crocodile? The crocodile is the exception. The crocodile breaks all the rules. For a 20-foot saltwater crocodile, you are not an unnatural meal. You are not a desperation meal. You are not a mistake. You are a perfectly sized mammal. You are made of meat, and you have foolishly come to the water. For the saltwater and Nile croc, it is different. They are opportunistic, generalist predators. They will eat anything they can overpower a fish, a bird, a zebra, a cow, or you. We fit the prey profile perfectly. We are the perfect size. We come to the water. For them, hunting a human isn't an aberration. It's just a Tuesday. This is a mainstream historical fact that is hard to swallow. For this one specific animal, we are, and always have been, just food. And this is what sets the stage for our entire journey. This establishes a terrifying precedent. This is the ancient contract that has existed between our lineage and theirs. If a normal 20-foot modern crocodile will hunt a 6-foot, 180-pound Homo sapiens just because, then what did their ancient ancestors do? What happens when we rewind the clock back to a time when our ancestors were half our size, and the crocodiles were bigger? We are now ready to stop looking at the modern day. The echoes are done. We are ready to step back in time. We are going to the Pleistocene. We are stepping back. But we're not going all the way. Not yet. We are making our first stop, rewinding the clock past the dawn of civilization, past the invention of farming, past the very first cave paintings, and landing in a world that is both familiar and utterly alien. We are landing 50,000 years ago. Welcome to the Pleistocene. You probably know it by a more common name, the Ice Age. Now, when you hear Ice Age, you probably picture a world of endless, frozen tundra. And yes, in the far north, that was true. But for much of the planet, it was a world that was cooler, drier, and home to a biological principle that is hard for us to truly comprehend today. It was the age of giants. It was the age of the megafauna. This is a mainstream historical fact that forms the backdrop of our species' adolescence. This was the world that you, as a Homo sapiens, were born into. Our direct ancestors, anatomically modern humans, were now on the scene. They had spread out of Africa and were making their way across the globe, into Europe, into Asia, into Australia. And they were not alone. Imagine you are an early human, part of a small hunter-gatherer band in what will one day be called France. You step out of your cave shelter, a skin pulled tight around your shoulders. The air is cold, crisp, and you look out over the landscape. It is not an empty, quiet world. It is a world of titans. You see a herd of woolly mammoths, 14-foot-tall, 10-ton behemoths with curving 12-foot-long tusks, their shaggy coats rippling in the wind. You hear the ground-shaking thud of their steps. In the distance, a creature that looks like a 20-foot-tall bear stands on its hind legs to rip leaves from a tree. But it's not a bear. It's a giant ground sloth, Megatherium, a creature so bizarre, so massive, it defies our modern categories. You see herds of mastodon, giant bison, and wild horses. And where there is giant prey, there are giant predators. This was your neighborhood. This was the daily reality. Historians still argue whether our ancestors were mighty mammoth hunters from the start, or if, more likely, we were just opportunistic scavengers, darting in to steal scraps from the real killers, terrified of drawing their attention. This is the key. You, the Homo sapiens of 50,000 years ago, were not the top of the food chain. Not by a long shot. You were just another medium-sized mammal, and you were on the menu. These are the first true, largest animals that our specific species had to face. This was our daily grinding terror. We have scientific evidence of this. It's not just speculation. We find human bones and megafauna bones in the same strata, in the same caves. We find mammoth bones with the unmistakable cut marks of human stone tools, and more chillingly, we find human bones with the unmistakable tooth marks of giant predators. This was a two-way street, and we were often on the losing end. As a quirky, or perhaps just profound tidbit, think about the very first art. The stunning, breathtaking paintings in caves like Chauvet or Lascaux. What did we paint? Did we paint ourselves? Did we paint landscapes? No! Overwhelmingly, we painted the animals. We painted the mammoths, the lions, the bears, the rhinos. We painted the megafauna. These paintings, some over 30,000 years old, are a window into the human mind of the Pleistocene. They were an obsession. They were our food, our clothing, our tools, and our mortal, terrifying enemies. When you paint a 15-foot-tall lion on a cave wall, you are not just painting an animal, you are painting the Great Fear. The threats of the Pleistocene were a step change from the modern world. The lions, the bears, the wolves, they were all there. but they were all on a different scale. They were, in every sense of the word, mega. And we, the small, clever, fragile new arrivals, were surrounded. To find our largest animal, our journey must now take us through this gallery of Ice Age monsters, this hall of fame of the predators that hunted us. We begin our tour of the Pleistocene's Hall of Fame with the undisputed icon, the superstar of the Ice Age, the one you've seen in every museum and every children's book. We are, of course, talking about the saber-toothed tiger. Except right away, we have to make a correction. This is the mainstream historical fact that paleontologists are always trying to get across. Smilodon, as it's properly known, was not a tiger. It wasn't even a cat, in the same way a lion or a tiger is. It was part of a separate, extinct lineage of feliforms, a different kind of killer. And what a killer it was. Let's build the threat profile. Smilodon was a beast of pure power. It was built less like a lion and more like a grizzly bear. A low-slung, incredibly muscular body designed for ambush and grappling. Its most famous feature, those 9-inch-long canines, are a masterpiece of biological terror. But they weren't for slashing or ripping. We have scientific evidence from detailed biomechanical models of its skull and jaw. Those sabers were surprisingly fragile and would have snapped if they hit bone. They weren't for a frenzied attack. They were for a single, precise, gothic killing bite. Smilodon would use its immense upper body strength to wrestle its prey to the ground. A giant ground sloth, a bison, a young mammoth. Pin it down, and then, with surgical precision, use those canines to sever the carotid artery and jugular vein. The victim would bleed out in seconds. It is a terrifying image. But now we have to ask the critical question: did they hunt us? This is where historians still argue whether it was a primary threat. We find Smilodon fossils in the same places as early human fossils, most famously at the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles. They absolutely met us. But was a 5-foot-tall, 130-pound Homo sapiens its prey? A Smilodon was a megafauna specialist. It was built to take down a 3-ton sloth. A small, fast, agile human armed with a sharp spear might have been far more trouble than it was worth. It would be like trying to catch a squirrel with a cannon. It's not that it couldn't kill a human, it absolutely could, but it's unlikely we were its preferred meal. No, to find the real great cat threat of the Ice Age, we have to look at a different and arguably more terrifying predator. Meet Panthera spelaea, the Eurasian cave lion. This was the true king of the Pleistocene. Forget what you know about modern African lions. The cave lion was, on average, 25% larger than its modern cousin. A massive 700-pound male would have been a fast, powerful, and an incredibly intelligent social hunter. This wasn't a specialist like Smilodon. This was a generalist. It hunted horses, reindeer, bison, and yes, almost certainly, us. We have scientific evidence of this in abundance. Their fossils are found from Great Britain to the far east of Russia, and all across Europe, in the exact same caves and shelters that our ancestors were using. This was a direct, head-to-head competition for the single most valuable resource in the Ice Age, a warm, dry place to survive the cold. As a quirky tidbit, the very first cave art we found, in places like Chauvet Cave, is full of these lions. The art is so detailed we can see their features, which has sparked a whole debate. The paintings show them without manes. Was this an artistic choice? Or were cave lions, unlike their African relatives, maneless? We don't just have art, We have fossilized human bones from this period with the unmistakable puncture marks of a large cat's bite. This was the real terror. Imagine huddling in a cave, your small fire the only thing holding back the dark, and hearing the deep, rumbling cough of a 700-pound lion just outside the circle of light. This was a pack-hunting super lion, and it was the Tsavo man-eater of the Ice Age. Our species lived in fear of this animal for over 100,000 years. So the cave lion is a truly terrifying contender. It's certainly one of the largest predators to ever have hunted Homo sapiens. But is it the largest animal? No. Our journey through this Pleistocene gallery of death is just beginning. There was another predator on land, one that made the cave lion look small. If the 700-pound cave lion was the king of the Ice Age predators, we now have to meet the emperor. We have to look up. Way up. We are now face to face with Arctidus simus, the giant short-faced bear. This animal, which roamed North America during the Pleistocene, holds a mainstream historical fact that is hard to wrap your head around. It was the largest mammalian land carnivore of its time. Let's just get the numbers out of the way because they are absurd. A modern male grizzly, a truly terrifying animal, might top out at 800 pounds and stand 8 feet tall on its hind legs. The Arctidus simus, well, it weighed over a ton, 2,000 pounds, and on its hind legs it could stand 12, perhaps even 13 feet tall. Imagine you as a 5-foot-tall human. This creature could have stood on its front paws and still looked you in the eye. But the most terrifying thing about the short-faced bear isn't just its size, it's its shape. This was not a slow, lumbering, fat-storing bear like a modern grizzly. Its body was different. It had a short, boxy bulldog face, which gave it an immense bite force. And most importantly, it had long, slender, powerful legs. This was not a bear built for ambling. This was a bear built for running. It was a 2,000-pound predator with the proportions of a cheetah. It's a biological nightmare. We have scientific evidence that confirms its terrifying lifestyle. When scientists analyzed the nitrogen isotopes in its fossilized bones, they found a signature that was off the charts. It was an obligate carnivore. That's a scientific way of saying it didn't just eat meat, it only ate meat. And lots of it. Unlike modern bears that will happily eat berries, nuts, and salmon, Arctidus was a full-time, dedicated meat eater. But this is where historians still argue whether it was a hunter or a scavenger. This is one of the great scholarly debates in paleontology. Was this 12-foot-tall giant a super predator running down Ice Age horses and bison? Or was it the world's most terrifying bully? The bully hypothesis suggests that Arctidus used its sheer size and intimidation factor to simply steal kills. It would let a pack of dire wolves or a smilodon do the hard work of taking down a mammoth, and then this 2,000-pound monster would just walk up, shove them aside, and take their lunch. It's an image that is both terrifying and, you have to admit, a little bit comical in its audacity. In Europe, our ancestors faced a different but equally enormous bear, Ursus spelaeus, the cave bear. This was another behemoth. But as a quirky tidbit of science, we are pretty sure this one wasn't a monster, at least not in the same way. Isotope studies on its bones show it was almost entirely an herbivore, a 1,000-pound vegetarian. But this didn't mean it wasn't a threat. The conflict with the cave bear wasn't about predation. It was about real estate. The cave bear's name is literal. It hibernated in massive numbers in the deep, dry caves of Europe. We have scientific evidence of this in the form of caves found stacked to the ceiling with thousands of their bones, a solid mat of fossils now. Imagine you are an Ice Age human, and you are also looking for a warm, dry cave to survive the winter. You find the perfect spot. You light a torch, walk inside, and you wake up a 1,000-pound, very grumpy, plant-eating bear. This was a bad day for everyone involved. So let's look at our scorecard. The giant, short-faced bear. It's a prime candidate. It had the size, it had the speed, and it had the appetite. It absolutely would have preyed on any small, hobbit-like humans it came across. It's a genuine contender for largest animal to hunt humans. But it's a land mammal. As terrifying as it is, it's a terrestrial problem. Our journey, our deep primal fear, has always had a special place for the water. We can run from a bear. We can climb a tree. But what do you do when the land itself is a lie, and the water is waiting? Our true monster is still out there. We've met the great cats and the giant bears. We've been looking at the threat from a single, massive individual. But what if we've been asking the wrong question? What if the largest animal wasn't a single animal at all? What if it was a giant made of many moving parts? What if the true terror of the Pleistocene was a distributed predator, a single-minded, multi-bodied killing machine? We, of course, are talking about the pack. And in the Ice Age, one pack ruled. We are talking about the dire wolf, Canis dirus. Now, the first thing we have to do is get the mainstream historical fact out of the way. Yes, they were real. They are not just a fantasy creature from Game of Thrones. The dire wolf was an apex predator that dominated the Americas for over 100,000 years, and it died out only recently, around 13,000 years ago. And it lived, hunted, and died right alongside the first Homo sapiens to enter the New World. Let's build the profile. The dire wolf was not just a big grey wolf. It was a different beast altogether. It was heavier, more robust, and more powerful, weighing in at around 150 pounds, about 25% heavier than a modern grey wolf. It had a larger head, and its teeth were different. We have scientific evidence from the sheer shape and size of its molars. They were built for crushing bone. A grey wolf pack will tear flesh, but it often leaves the largest bones behind. A dire wolf pack, it's believed, left nothing. They were the cleanup crew from hell, able to crack open the femurs of bison and horses to get at the marrow. This leads to the threat. You are a lone human, perhaps separated from your group. A 150-pound dire wolf is a problem, but maybe one you can solve with a spear. But you are never going to meet one dire wolf. They are a pack animal. You are going to meet 10 of them. 10 150-pound, bone-crushing predators, all moving with a single coordinated intelligence. A lone human has no chance. A small family group has no chance. This is the distributed predator. Its size is 1,500 pounds, but it has 40 legs and 10 sets of jaws. This is the us versus them dynamic. This pack strategy is key, because it's the exact same strategy we were developing. We, Homo sapiens, were not strong. We were not fast. We were not armed with fangs or claws. Our superpower was the pack. Our superpower was cooperation. We too were a distributed predator. And in the Americas, we ran headlong into a creature that was doing it better. This creates a fascinating and still debated question. Historians still argue whether our unique, special alliance, the one that changed our species forever, was a direct result of this conflict. Think about it. We didn't domesticate the dire wolf. They were too big, too specialized, too other. Instead, we formed an alliance with their smaller, more adaptable cousin, the grey wolf. This alliance, which eventually gave us the dog, was the single greatest weapon we ever developed. Was this an arms race? Did we, the human pack, need the grey wolf pack to help us compete with and survive the dire wolf pack? It's a compelling theory. As a quirky tidbit, we know so much about them for one reason: the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles. It's the most famous fossil site in the world, but it's not a balanced ecosystem. We have found the fossils of over 4,000 individual dire wolves there. It was a predator trap. A mammoth would get stuck, crying out in distress. The dire wolves, thinking they had an easy meal, would rush in and get stuck too. It's a grim 4,000-strong testament to their nature as relentless, opportunistic hunters. So let's look at the verdict. The dire wolf pack. A terrifying force? Absolutely. A giant in the conceptual sense? Yes, but it's not a single animal. Our quest is specific. We are looking for the largest animal. A single entity. The dire wolf pack, as terrifying as it is a team. We must disqualify it. We are still just warming up, and the pretenders to the throne are getting bigger. We've met the Ice Age land beasts, but now we have to pause. We have to address the giant, scaly, 40-foot-tall elephant in the room. Someone, somewhere, as we're talking about largest animals, is thinking it. You're sitting there in the dark, and your brain is whispering. But what about T-Rex? What about dinosaurs? Let's just get this out of the way. No. This isn't just a probably not. This is an absolutely, unequivocally not in a million years. No. This is the mainstream historical fact that defines our entire timeline. The Tyrannosaurus rex, along with all the other non-avian dinosaurs, went extinct in a blaze of asteroid-fueled glory 65 million years ago. We have scientific evidence for this that is as concrete as it gets. It's a literal, physical line in the rock, the K-PG boundary, a layer of iridium-rich clay found all over the world, the ash from the impact that ended their world. Now, let's look at the other side of that timeline. Where were we? Where were our ancestors 65 million years ago? Were we brave, spear-wielding hunters? No, we were purgatorious. We were tiny, terrified, shrew-like mammals, scurrying in the undergrowth, hiding in burrows and praying, if we had the brain power to pray, that a 10-foot-long raptor didn't see us. We were the rats of the Cretaceous, and T-Rex wouldn't have even noticed us, unless we were an accidental appetizer stuck between its 12-inch-long teeth. So, there is a 65 million year gap. A gap of 65 million years between the last T-Rex and the humans in our story. Historians still argue whether Australopithecus counts as human, a debate spanning a few million years. We are talking about a chasm 30 times wider than that. No, just no. This is a good moment to have a little laugh, to clear our palates. It's the movie monster answer, but it's not the real answer. Our journey is about the real monsters. The age of dinosaurs is not our story. Our story, the age of mammals, has its own monsters, and frankly, they are more terrifying because they were smart, warm-blooded, and they hunted us. But there is a quirky and frankly terrifying tidbit here. The T-Rex died, but one group of dinosaurs did survive. In fact, we see them every day. We call them birds. And for a brief, terrible time after the asteroid, in the age of mammals, our tiny primate ancestors had to deal with a new kind of dinosaur predator. We are talking about the terror birds, the Forus racidae. Imagine a 10-foot-tall, 300-pound flightless bird, an ostrich with the head of a giant eagle, a hooked, razor-sharp beak designed for one thing, smashing bone and ripping flesh. For millions of years, these were the apex predators in South America and parts of Europe. Our small, lemur-like ancestors living in the trees of the Eocene 40 million years ago would have been terrified of these things. They were, in a very real sense, dinosaurs that hunted our primate ancestors. But even this, as cool as it is not our answer. This is a 40-million-year-old threat. It's not a human threat. We have ruled out the land. We have ruled out the age of dinosaurs. But there is one monster left. A pretender to the throne who demands our attention, because this one is the largest predator of all time, the one everyone thinks is the answer, the one whose timeline almost overlaps with ours. We must now leave the land and plunge into the deep, dark, ancient ocean. We have to go and find Megalodon. We are leaving the land. We are leaving the Ice Age and the terror birds and the 65-million-year-old ghosts of T-Rex. We are plunging into the deep, dark ocean of the Pliocene. We are here to find the great white shadow. We are here to find the undisputed heavyweight champion of all predators. We are here to find Otodus Megalodon. This is the animal you were waiting for. This is the ultimate monster. It is a mainstream historical fact that Megalodon was the largest shark, and indeed the largest predatory fish, that has ever existed. The numbers are simply stupid. We are talking about an animal that could reach 60, perhaps even 67, feet in length. It could have weighed over 100 tons. A great white shark, the modern-day apex predator, would have been a snack. A megalodon could have swallowed a modern great white whole and barely noticed. Let's build the profile, because it's a profile of pure abstract terror. Its teeth were the size of your hand, 7 inches long, serrated like a steak knife. But the real horror wasn't the teeth. It was the mouth. Its bite radius was an estimated 9 feet across. It could have swallowed a modern rhinoceros without chewing. We have scientific evidence of how it hunted, and it's even more brutal than you'd think. We have found the fossilized vertebrae of Pliocene whales, whales that were 30 feet long, and they show catastrophic damage. The analysis suggests Megalodon didn't just bite its prey. It rammed its prey, like a freight train, with such force that it would shatter its rib cage and spine before it even bothered to take a bite. It was a 100-ton torpedo designed to obliterate the largest things in the ocean. So, here we are. We have found our largest animal. This is the one. A 60-foot, 100-ton hunter. The question, the only question that matters for our journey, is, did it hunt humans? This is it, the big question. And to answer it, we have to become forensic. We have to be detectives. We can't rely on shark movies or speculation. We have to rely on the single most important tool in this entire story, the timeline. We have to look at the dates in the rock. The timeline for Otodus megalodon is clear. It was a highly successful predator that ruled the world's oceans for a very long time. Its fossils are abundant, found all over the globe from 23 million years ago until 3.6 million years ago. That is the date, agreed upon by the vast majority of the scientific community. 3.6 million years ago, Megalodon vanishes from the fossil record. Now, let's look at our other timeline, the human timeline. We're not talking about Homo sapiens. We're not even talking about Homo erectus. We are looking for the very first members of our own genus, the very first human. That honor goes to Homo habilis, the handyman. And the oldest fossils we have for Homo habilis date to around 2.8 million years ago. You see the problem? Megalodon disappears at 3.6 million years ago. Humans appear at 2.8 million years ago. The verdict is in, and it's heartbreaking for monster lovers everywhere. They missed each other. The greatest predator of all time and the human never met our ancestors were never ever hunted by Megalodon. By the time Homo habilis was chipping his first stone tool, the last Megalodon had been dead for at least 800,000 years. Now, this is where the scholarly debate gets a little spicy. 3.6 million versus 2.8 million. In geologic time, that's an eye blink. But in the real world, 800,000 years is a chasm. It's a gap. But is it a perfect gap? Some scientists argue the 3.6 million year date is a hard stop. Others wonder, could a few small relict populations of Megalodon have survived? Could they have limped on in some remote corner of the ocean to 3.5, 3.2, 3.0 million years ago? And could they have met, not Homo habilis, but his ancestor, the 3.2 million-year-old Australopithecus? Lucy, it's possible, in the anything is possible sense, but there is not one single shred of evidence. Not a single Australopithecus bone with a Megalodon bite mark, not a single Megalodon tooth found in a rock layer after 3.6 million years ago. The answer from science has to be no. This, of course, does not stop the other side. This is the fringe tidbit that has launched 1,000 documentaries. The cryptozoologists, the true believers, who claim Megalodon never died. They claim it still exists right now, hiding in the deepest, darkest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench. Let's be clear, this is scientifically 100% impossible. Why? Because Megalodon was a warm water shark. Its fossils are found in the shallow, warm, coastal seas where it hunted whales. The Mariana Trench is 36,000 feet deep and just above freezing. A Megalodon would die of hypothermia and starvation down there. It would be like trying to find a polar bear living in the Sahara. So, the greatest monster of all is a no. We have to disqualify Megalodon. It's the largest animal, but it did not hunt humans. Our search must go on. So we've disqualified the 100-ton monster. Megalodon is out. But this raises an even more profound question, one that's central to our entire quest. Why? If Megalodon was so big, so powerful, so dominant, that it ruled the oceans for 20 million years, why isn't it still here? How do you kill a god? The answer is a crucial lesson in evolution, and it's a theme that will come back again and again in our story. Size is not a strength. Size, more often than not, is a weakness. Size is a specialization. Size is a biological bet that you place on the environment staying exactly as it is. And the one thing the environment never does is stay the same. The death of Megalodon wasn't a single dramatic event like the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. It was a long, slow, agonizing death by 1,000 cuts, driven by a planet that was changing in ways the giant shark just couldn't handle. The first cut was the climate. This is the mainstream historical fact of the Pliocene. The warm, tropical paradise of the previous era began to end. The planet's thermostat dropped. The ice caps at the poles began to grow and lock up enormous amounts of water. This, in turn, caused sea levels to fall dramatically. Why does this matter to a 60-foot shark? Because of its babies. Like modern sharks, Megalodon almost certainly gave birth to live pups, and it used vast, shallow coastal nursery grounds, like the modern-day lagoons of Florida or Panama, where the water was warm and full of easy prey, and the pups were safe from larger predators. As the sea levels fell, these nurseries literally dried up. They became coastal plains. Megalodon's cribs were being systematically destroyed, leaving its young exposed and vulnerable. The second cut was the food. The cooling of the planet had another effect. It changed the food. Megalodon was a specialist. It ate whales, but the whales were adapting. As the poles grew colder, the water there became super-oxygenated and nutrient-rich, creating massive blooms of krill. The whales, which were warm-blooded mammals, loved this. They evolved, adapted, and began migrating to these new, cold, polar feeding grounds. Megalodon could not follow. As a fish, it was likely, though historians still argue whether it was fully cold-blooded or partially warm-blooded, tied to the warm tropical waters. Its prey, its entire food source, was moving to the freezer, and Megalodon was stuck in the kitchen. It was starving. The third and final cut was the competition. As Megalodon was getting squeezed, its nurseries disappearing, its prey vanishing, a new, smaller, smarter predator was rising. We have scientific evidence that the modern great white shark, Carcharodon carcharias, evolved during this exact same period. This new shark was smaller, faster, more adaptable, and likely smarter. It didn't need to eat 80-ton whales. It could hunt seals, sea lions, or dolphins. It was the jack-of-all-trades predator. And it was a deadly competitor. The great white may have outcompeted the young Megalodon, eating the same food the teenage giants needed to survive. A baby great white and a baby Megalodon might have been rivals, and the great white was just better at surviving in this new, colder, tougher world. So, the giant wasn't killed by a bigger monster. It was nibbled to death by climate change, starvation, and a smaller, more scrappy competitor. As a quirky and rather dark tidbit, this is a direct parallel to the Smilodon, which would later be outcompeted by the more adaptable puma and grey wolf. The specialist always loses to the generalist when the world changes. But let's just speculate. Let's play the what-if game for a second. What if Megalodon had survived? What if its prey hadn't moved? What if Homo habilis, our 4-foot-tall ancestor, had walked down to the shores of an African beach, and a 60-foot Megalodon was still out there, patrolling the coast? The answer is simple. Our history would be non-existent. We would never have become a coastal species. We would never have sailed. We would never have fished. The ocean would have been a wall, an absolute no-go zone, guarded by a 100-ton monster. Our entire evolutionary history, our migration out of Africa, our reliance on the sea for food, all of it would be impossible. Our human story would have been stillborn, all because a giant shark didn't die. So the realization is complete. We have now definitively disqualified the largest predator of all time. And this is the pivot for our entire story. It means the answer to our question, the largest animal to ever hunt humans, is not the biggest monster that ever lived. The answer is the biggest monster. That actually met us. The ocean is out. The real monster, the true answer, is not in the sea. To find it, we must go back to the land, or more specifically, to the inland water, to the lakes and the rivers. The one place our ancestors could not avoid. We have to go to the Pliocene. We've closed the case on Megalodon, but he wasn't the only god-tier monster in that ancient ocean. It's only fair we acknowledge his chief rival, the other apex predator of the Pliocene. While Megalodon was the great white shadow, the other was a white whale of pure terror. Meet Leviathan melvillei. Yes, it's named Leviathan after the biblical Leviathan, and Melville after Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick. And it earned that name. This was a whale-eating sperm whale. A 60-foot-long, 50-ton killer whale on steroids. It's a mainstream historical fact that while Megalodon had the serrated slicing teeth, Leviathan had the largest stabbing teeth of any animal ever. We are talking about 14-inch long fangs, the size of a human forearm. This was a whale that hunted other whales, and it almost certainly fought with Megalodon. We have found Megalodon teeth and Leviathan teeth in the same fossil beds. It was a true clash of the titans. But again, just like its rival, Leviathan suffers from the same problem, the wrong timeline. It too died out in the Pliocene cooling, long before our Homo habilis ancestors showed up. So another monster, disqualified. But let's go back even further, just for a moment, because this is where our primate ancestral line gets its first taste of terror. We go back 40 million years to the Eocene. Our ancestors are tiny, lemur-like creatures, perhaps an Egyptopithecus living in the lush, tropical forests of what is now Egypt. But back then, this was the Tethys Sea, and in that sea lived the real sea serpent. We have scientific evidence for this in one of the most magical and terrifying places on Earth, Wadi al-Hitan, the Valley of the Whales in the Egyptian desert. It's a place where the sand is littered with the complete, articulated skeletons of Basilosaurus. Basilosaurus means king lizard, because the paleontologists who first found it thought it was a giant reptile. They were wrong. It was a whale. A 60-foot-long, serpentine, fully carnivorous whale. It had a tiny head, a long eel-like body, and it was the ape-predator of its world. Our tiny primate ancestors, perhaps clinging to a branch overhanging the water, would have looked down and seen this real 60-foot-long sea serpent sliding through the water below. It didn't hunt humans, but it was a monster that hunted in the world of our primate ancestors. This is the psychological thread. This is the why of our deep, primal fear of the water. Basilosaurus, Leviathan, Megalodon. For 40 million years of our primate and hominid evolution, the ocean was, unequivocally, a no-go zone. It was a realm of actual monsters. It was a place you did not go. Historians still argue whether this is genetic memory, but it's certainly prepared learning. We are hardwired to be suspicious of the deep, dark water, because for our entire history that's where the 60-foot-long things lived. So, we have established a rule. The ocean is out. The sea is where the movie monsters lived. Too big, too ancient, too other. They didn't hunt us. They missed us. This means our pivot is final. The real threat. The true monster that hunted humans must be found inland. It must be found in the one place our ancestors could not avoid. You can avoid the ocean. You cannot avoid thirst. You must drink. You must come to the lakes. You must come to the rivers. And that is where our real monster was waiting. Not an ancient 60-foot whale, but a creature that was alive and well, at its absolute peak, in the exact same place and at the exact same time as our ancestors. The real timeline is not 65 million years ago. It's not 23 million years ago. The real timeline is the gap. We must go to the place and time right where the Megalodon timeline ends, 3.6 million years ago, and the human timeline begins, 2.8 million years ago. We are going to the Pliocene. We are going to a specific, dusty, fossil-rich basin in Africa. We are going to the Cradle of Humankind. So, the ocean is a no. The real monster is inland. We are setting our time machine. We are leaving the 60-foot sharks behind, and we are dialing in the coordinates to a very specific time and a very specific place. The time 4 million years ago, the heart of the Pliocene. The place, the Turkana Basin, in what is now modern-day Kenya. This is the spot. This is the cradle of humankind, a mainstream historical fact that cannot be overstated. This is not just a place where our ancestors lived. It is the place of this dusty, arid, sun-scorched basin is where we have found the most complete and revealing record of our own origins. But you must erase the image of the dusty desert from your mind. That is the now. The then, 4 million years ago, was a paradise. Imagine you are standing here. The air is warm, humid. Before you, a vast, glittering body of water stretches to the horizon. A massive, deep, freshwater lake. This is the ancient mega-version of Lake Turkana. It is fed by powerful, winding rivers, and its banks are not sand and rock, but lush, green gallery forests and sprawling wetland. It is an African Eden. The air is filled with the calls of birds, the buzzing of insects, the distant grunts of giants. And here, by the shore, living in the space between the forest and the reeds, is our protagonist. This is you. You are Australopithecus, and soon you will be Homo habilis, the handy man. You are small, perhaps 4 feet tall on a good day. Your brain is a fraction of its future size. You are just figuring out that you can make a sharp edge by striking one rock against another. You are, in no uncertain terms, the weakest, most vulnerable thing in this entire ecosystem. You are a snack. But you are here. Why? Because of the water. This lake, this river, is everything. It is your source of life. You come here to drink. You come here to dig for tubers in the soft mud. You come here to catch fish or turtles. You come here to hide in the reeds, a refuge from the great roaring cats that own the savannah just behind you. Your entire life is tethered to this single, critical, life-giving and absolutely terrifying edge. We have scientific evidence for this in the fossils themselves. Our ancestors' remains are not found on the high, dry plains. They are found time and time again in the same rock layers as the fish, the hippos, and the crocodiles. They are found in the sediments of the lakeshore. They were waterside hominins. This very idea, of course, is at the heart of a famous quirky and now very fringe tidbit of science, the aquatic ape hypothesis, AAH. This was a theory, popularized in the 1960s, that suggested humans evolved from an ancestor that lived in the water. It was used to explain everything: why we lost our fur for streamlining, why we walk upright to keep our heads above water, and why we have a layer of blubber-like subcutaneous fat. While the AAH is now almost universally dismissed by mainstream science, it's a fascinating what if. But the core observation that sparked it is undeniably true. Our ancestors were, for millions of years, obsessed with the water. And historians still argue whether this was a choice or a trap. Were we drawn to the rich coastal buffet, as some have called it, thriving on the fish and clams? Or were we the losers of the ecosystem, pushed out of the safe, resource-rich forests by the more dominant apes, and forced into this dangerous, marginal, no-man's land between the water and the plains? Whatever the reason, the stage is now set. You are a 4-foot-tall, 80-pound hominin. You are standing at the edge of a lush, freshwater paradise. You are thirsty. You are surrounded. The land behind you is home to monsters. And the water in front of you, is still. Too still. And in that stillness, something is waiting. Something that has been watching us for our entire evolutionary life. Something that is itself a living fossil. And this time, it's bigger than all of them. Before we meet our final monster in the water, you have to understand the neighborhood. You have to understand the daily terror on land. The Cradle of Humankind in the Pliocene was not a gentle, empty paradise. It was Jurassic Park, but with mammals. The sheer scale of the animals here is something we have lost, something our modern minds have no context for. This was a world of giants, and you, our 4-foot-tall, 80-pound Homo habilis ancestor, were the smallest and weakest bipedal mammal on the entire landscape. Let's take a walk, just a few hundred yards from the safety of your family's sleeping tree. The sun is just starting to rise. You hear a sound, a low, ground-shaking thud. You freeze, and you see it. An elephant. But it's wrong. This is Deinotherium. The name means terrible beast. It's a 13-foot-tall, 14-ton relative of the modern elephant, and it is a behemoth. But its tusks are not on its upper jaw, curving up. Its tusks are on its chin, its lower jaw, and they curve downwards, like a giant, terrifying set of hoe tusks. This is the mainstream historical fact of the Pliocene. The world was full of these terrible beasts. Historians still argue whether their bizarre tusks were used for digging up roots, for pulling down giant branches, or for stripping the bark from trees. Frankly, as you hide in the tall grass, you don't care why. You only care that this walking mountain doesn't see you. You wait for it to pass, and you keep moving, your small stone chopper clutched in your hand. You come to a clearing, and you see a herd of, well, you don't know what to call them. They look like buffalo, but they are giants. This is Pelorovis, the monstrous sheep, a quirky and frankly terrible tidbit of naming, as it's not a sheep at all, but a colossal, ancient buffalo. We have scientific evidence from its fossils, a complete skull, that shows what you are seeing is real. Its horns are not like a modern buffalo's. They are a solid, curving mass of bone that spans 10 feet from tip to tip. A single pelorivus is the size of a modern car, and its horns are wider than that car is long. The herd moves like a single armored 20-ton wall. You are not on their menu. You are just an inconvenience that could be turned into a red smear on the savannah without a second thought. And where there is giant prey, there is a giant hunter. You smell it before you see it. The coppery scent of a fresh kill. You follow the sound of splintering bone. And there it is. It's a cat, but again, it's wrong. This is Megalodon, the other saber-toothed cat. Bigger than a lion, more robust, and it is currently, effortlessly, ripping the throat out of a 1,000-pound antelope. It is the land's apex predator. It is the nightmare that haunts your sleep in the trees. You and your family group are in a constant, running battle with these cats, not to hunt them, but to avoid them. And perhaps, if you are very brave or very stupid, to dart in after it's done, to steal the scraps, to use your small, sharp stone to crack the bones it leaves behind, to get the one thing your growing brain so desperately craves, the marrow, the fat. This is the point. This is your world. You are surrounded. Deinotherium, Pelorovis, Megalodon. The land is a hell of giants. Everything is bigger than you, stronger than you, and faster than you. You are the smallest, weakest thing out there. Your only advantages are your small, clever hands and your pack. So, what do? The land is death. The open savanna is a killing field. Where do you go? You go to the refuge. You go to the water. You go to the reeds by the lakeshore. The 13-foot-tall terrible beast can't move quietly through the reeds. The 10-foot-horned monstrous sheep won't come into the swamp. The saber-toothed cat. Well, most cats hate water. The reeds are your safe zone. It's a place to hide. It's a place to find food. You can dig up the soft, starchy tubers. You can find birds' eggs. You can catch fish and turtles. The water seems safe. But this refuge, this safe place, is a lie. It is a trap. Because the apex predator of this entire ecosystem, the one that eats the 13-foot-tall elephants, the one that is not afraid of the 10-foot-horned buffalo, it doesn't live on the land. It isn't afraid of the water. It is the water. And it's bigger than all of them. This is the target. This is the human in our story. Before we can meet our monster, we have to know its prey. We have to put ourselves in their skin. So, for this section, you are no longer the modern Homo sapiens listening to a story. You are the human on the menu. You are Homo habilis, the handyman. You stand at your absolute tallest, 4 feet, 3 inches. You weigh 80 pounds, soaking wet. Your arms are long, still good for climbing. A reminder that your recent ancestors lived in the trees. Your legs are getting better, but you are not a runner. You are a scurrier. Your brain is about half the size of a modern human's. A small, brilliant, 600 cubic centimeter engine of pure, terrified genius. You are not a caveman. You are not a hunter. You are in the grand, terrifying ecosystem of the Pliocene. Just prey. But you have a superpower. It's not claws. It's not fangs. It's not speed. It's not armor. It's something new. It's a trick. You have figured out that if you take this one type of rock, a smooth, hard hammerstone, and you strike this other type of volcanic rock, a core, in just the right way, a flake will fly off, and that flake is sharp, sharper than a lion's tooth, sharper than a Machairodus claw. This is the mainstream historical fact of your existence. The Oldowan tool industry. This is your superpower! You can make an edge! What do you do with it? You can't hunt a 13-foot Dinotherium with a sharp rock. You can't fight a 10-foot horned Pelorovis. But you can process them. After the saber-toothed cat has had its fill and moved on, you and your small, chattering, terrified group dash in from the bushes. You use your sharp flake to slice through the thick hide, to cut away strips of meat that the cat couldn't get. And most importantly, you use your other tool, the heavy, blunt hammerstone, to smash the one thing the cat can't open. The long bones. You crack them open, and inside is the marrow. A rich, high-fat, high-calorie, brain food paste. This is your rocket fuel. This is the high-octane meal that is feeding that new experimental 600 cubic centimeter brain. This is your life. And historians still argue whether this is the true story. The old man the mighty hunter idea is mostly gone. The new prevailing theory is the scavenging hypothesis. Were we the mighty hunter, or were we, as this theory suggests, just a scavenging rat, a bone-crushing, marrow-sucking hominid? Most of the evidence points to the latter. We weren't the apex predator. We were the apex scavenger. We were picking the leftovers from the table of the real killers. You live in a small, tight-knit social group, maybe 15, 20 individuals. This is your other superpower. Us. Alone, you are a meal. Together, you are a problem. You can make noise. You can throw rocks. You can have lookouts. You can cooperate. This is the only way you survive. You are constantly on the move, constantly vigilant, sleeping in trees or in rocky outcrops, never in one place for long. And this creates your psychological state. The you of Homo habilis. Your entire world is fear. Fear is your constant companion. It is not a bad emotion. It's your primary survival tool. It's the thing that keeps you alive. The snap of a twig. A shadow moving in the tall grass. A new smell on the wind. Your brain is a threat detection machine. You are not living. You are surviving. A quirky, or perhaps just deeply sad, tidbit of fossil evidence supports this. When we find the fossils of Homo habilis or their cousins, Paranthropus, we occasionally find them with holes. Small circular holes in the skull, spaced exactly apart. We have scientific evidence that these holes perfectly match the lower canines of a leopard. The fossil record has literally preserved your nightmare, being dragged out of a tree in the dark, your skull in a leopard's mouth. So, this is your life. The land is death. The night is death. And you are surviving on the scraps of monsters. And then, there is the water. The refuge. The place you must go every single day to drink. The place you must go to find the soft tubers, the eggs, the safe food. And this is the final, ultimate daily terror, the stillness of the water at the lake's edge. You can see the danger on the savannah. You can hear the saber-tooth. You can smell the lion. But the water is silent. The water is blank. It shows you nothing but a reflection of the sky. This is the setup. This is our target. This is the human. This small, brilliant, terrified, 80-pound, 4-foot-tall marrow sucker that our largest animal is about to hunt. You are that 80-pound, 4-foot-tall marrow sucker. You are terrified. You are locked in a world of giants, clinging to the water's edge as your only refuge. And in that water, something is waiting. Now, we leave you. We step out of the Pliocene. We fast forward 3 million years and we return to that same spot. The Turkana Basin. But the paradise is gone. The lush, humid forests have retreated. The air is now dry, hot, and shimmering with heat. The landscape is a dusty, sun-scorched expanse of rock and sand. And here, in this hostile, arid now, we find a new kind of human. A Homo sapiens. A paleontologist. We are with Dr. Christopher Brochu. He and his colleague, Jackson Now, are doing the slow, painstaking, back-breaking work of paleontology. This isn't the dinosaur hunting you see in movies. This is different. They are sifting through the sediments of the Cubifora Formation, the layers of rock that have, for decades, given us the most profound clues to our own origins. This is the mainstream historical fact of the place. This formation is a book, and its pages are the exact layers that hold the fossils of Homo habilis and Australopithecus. They are here, looking for clues. Any clues about the world our ancestors lived in. And they find something. It's not a hominid skull. It's not a missing link. It's a fragment, a piece of a skull, a big piece, a crocodilian piece. They dig, they brush, they plaster, and what they unearth is a problem. They find a skull, a crocodile skull, but it is monstrously, impossibly. The tape measure comes out. The calipers. They measure, and they measure again. A modern, giant Nile crocodile, a 17-foot specimen, might have a skull about 2.5 feet long. The skull fragments they are finding, once reassembled, they point to a skull that is nearly the size of a full-grown man. A single tooth is thicker than a man's thumb. This is not a Nile crocodile. This is not anything that is supposed to be here. This is the "oh, wait" moment. The "this can't be right" moment that changes the entire story. Brochu and Niao analyze the anatomy. It's not a gator relative like Deinosuchus. It's not a gharial fish-eater. It's a true crocodile, a member of the genus Crocodylus, the same family as the modern Nile and saltwater crocs. But it's hyperscaled. It's like finding a modern human skull that's 8 feet tall. The proportions are terrifying. The snout is broad, deep, and built not for catching, but for crushing. This is a megafauna eater, a creature built to hunt the Dinotherium and the Pelorovis we met. And now, the single most important piece of scientific evidence. It's not just what they found. It's where they found it. It was in the Cubifora Formation. It was in the exact same rock layers. Not near, not around, the same strata. The fossils were dated 4 million years ago, 3 million years ago, 2.5 million years ago. The timeline is a perfect one-to-one, unavoidable overlap with our ancestors. For millions of years, Homo habilis and Australopithecus lived, drank, and died, right alongside this thing. Paleontologists still argue whether this creature and another similar giant found later are distinct species or close cousins, but this one needed a name. In 2012, Brochu named it. He called it Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. It's the mainstream historical fact of its naming, a tribute to John Thorbjarnarsson, a legendary real-life crocodile hunter-turned-conservationist, a man who was, himself, a giant in his field. As a quirky and slightly dark tidbit, the very existence of this fossil forced a re-evaluation of just how big a true crocodile could get. For a long time, scientists had a conservative upper limit in mind. C. thorbjarnarsoni shattered that limit. It reset the nightmare dial. This is the moment. The victim, our terrified 4-foot-tall ancestor, now has its monster. We have found the largest predator in the entire Pliocene African ecosystem. And we have found it living in the exact same place, at the exact same time, and in the exact same water as us. The question is all but answered. We have found our monster. Now we just have to get its mugshot. So we have found our monster. Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. Now, let's get its mugshot. Let's build this biological swimming tank, piece by terrifying piece. First, the size. We have to start with the size. When Dr. Brochu first described it, the conservative estimate, the one based on the skull fragments, put it at about 7.6 meters. That's 25 feet. Let's just pause there. A giant, man-eating monster saltwater crocodile today, the kind of croc that becomes a Gustav-level legend, is 20 feet long. That 20-foot animal is an apex predator, a 1 in a million genetic freak, and Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni, its average adult size was 25 feet. It started where our modern-day monsters end. But here's the kicker. Historians still argue whether that 25-foot number is even close to the truth. That estimate was based on applying the skull-to-body length ratio of modern Nile crocodiles to the giant fossil skull. And we have scientific evidence that this method consistently underestimates the size of these Pliocene giants. The ancient crocs just weren't built the same. Their heads were disproportionately huge. More recent estimates, trying to correct for this, put thorbjarnarsoni at 27 feet, 8.2 meters, or even larger. We are talking about a crocodile the length of a city bus. A bus that can swim at 20 miles per hour and hide in 3 feet of water. Next, the weight. A 25 to 27-foot animal, built with the density and muscle of a crocodile, is not a lightweight. We're not talking about a 1,000-pound grizzly or a 700-pound lion. We are talking about tonnage. The estimates start at 2.5 tons and climb past 3 tons. That's 6,000 pounds. It weighs more than a modern white rhino. It weighs more than a hippopotamus, the one animal in Africa that modern crocodiles refuse to mess with. This creature ate hippos. Now let's look at the business end. The skull. The skull, remember, was nearly the size of a man. It wasn't just long. It was wide. This is the quirky and frankly vital tidbit. It had an incredibly broad platyrostral snout. This is not the narrow, delicate snout of a fish-eater. This is the biological equivalent of a hydraulic press. We have scientific evidence for what this means. Broad-snouted crocodiles, like the modern American alligator or the saltwater croc, are built for rotational feeding. They are built to grab big, powerful, struggling prey, like a zebra, a buffalo, or in this case a 13-foot-tall Deinotherium, and rip it to pieces. The snout wasn't for biting. It was for vaporizing bone, as the original video put it. It was built to grab your 80-pound Homo habilis body and crush it. Not bite it, just crush it into a manageable pulp, in a single hydraulic snap. And then there's the armor. A crocodile's skin is not skin, it's a coat of chainmail. It is studded with bony plates called osteoderms, which are embedded directly into the thick, leathery hide. On a modern croc, these are pebble-sized. On a 27-foot, 6,000-pound thorbjarnarsoni, they would have been the size of dinner plates, interlocking, forming a coat of armor that would be invulnerable to, well, anything. The claws of a saber-toothed cat? Useless. The spear of a Homo sapiens 3 million years later? A joke. This animal was a biological swimming tank in the most literal sense. It was the apex predator, and it was also invulnerable. This is the final chilling comparison. This wasn't a dinosaur. It wasn't a sea serpent. It wasn't a monster from another age. This was a mainstream historical fact. It was a true crocodile, a member of the exact same genus, Crocodylus, as the modern-day Nile and saltwater crocs. It wasn't an ancient, primitive beast. It was a perfected beast. It was the pinnacle of crocodile evolution. It was the modern model, just scaled up to nightmare fuel proportions. It was the largest true crocodile to ever live. And it lived, it hunted, and it thrived in the exact same 4-foot-deep, muddy-banked refuge that you, Homo habilis, had to visit every single day just to get a drink of water. So, we have our monster, a 27-foot, 6,000-pound Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. And we have our victim, you, the 80-pound, 4-foot-tall Homo habilis. We have the scene of the crime, the shores of the Turkana Basin. And we have the mainstream historical fact that ties it all together. Their fossils are found in the exact same rock layers, at the exact same time the monster and the victim were, without question, neighbors. This is the point where a good detective would ask for the smoking gun. You'd say, "Okay, show me the body. Show me a Homo habilis fossil with the bite marks of a 27-foot crocodile." And this is the mystery, because we don't have it. As of today, we have not found a Homo habilis skeleton with the specific, giant, crushing bite marks of a Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. And this problem is, in its own way, the most terrifying piece of evidence in the entire story. The lack of evidence isn't a failure of the hypothesis. The lack of evidence is the hypothesis. This is the grim theory. Swallowed whole. Let's do the math. Let's make the analogy from the video more personal. Forget the French bulldog. Let's use you. You are Homo habilis. You weigh 70, maybe 80 pounds. You are 4 feet tall. You are, in every biological sense, a snack. You are a medium-sized mammal. Now let's look at the hunter. A 27-foot, 6,000-pound crocodile. Its skull, just its skull, is 5 to 6 feet long. Its mouth can gape wide enough to, well, to swallow you, not bite you. Swallow. Let's replay the scene, using the physics of the Pliocene. You've come to the water's edge. You're kneeling, cupping water to your mouth. You've done this 1,000 times, but this time a log you didn't see isn't a log. The attack is not a chase. It's an explosion. It is a 6,000-pound armor-plated missile launching from the water, covering the 10 feet between you. in less than half a second. You have no time to scream. You have no time to register what is happening. There is a snap of sound, like a tree trunk breaking in half. That is the sound of the jaws closing. But here is the key. You are not bitten. You are not wounded. You are engulfed. The creature's massive, broad snout, the one designed for crushing 2,000-pound hippos, has simply enclosed you. You are inside the mouth, the death roll that a modern croc uses to dismember a zebra. That's not for you. You're too small. The croc just tilts its head back. It gulps. And you are gone. You are taken to the bottom of the lake, in the dark, in the throat of the animal. There is no bite mark to leave. There is no skeleton to be found. You are not a kill. You are an appetizer. Paleontologists still argue whether this negative evidence is a strong enough case, but the biological argument that follows is ironclad, in the most literal sense. Let's say for a moment you were bitten. Let's say the croc only grabbed your leg. What happens to the evidence then? This brings us to the scientific evidence of crocodilian digestion. A crocodile's stomach is a biological furnace. It is one of the most powerful and horrific digestive systems on the planet. Their stomach acid is so potent, so corrosive, it can dissolve anything. As a quirky and deeply unsettling tidbit, crocodiles are known to swallow gastroliths, or stomach stones. They don't just use these stones to act as ballast. They use them to grind up the evidence. The stones tumble in the stomach, and combined with the acid, they dissolve hoof, horn, shell, and bone. A modern Nile crocodile's stomach acid can dissolve the entire skeleton of a gazelle, leaving no trace. Now, scale that up. Scale that up to a 27-foot monster, a creature that ate giant 10-foot horned Pelorovis. What would its digestive system do to the thin, hollow, 80-pound hominin skeleton of you? It would be erased. It would be unmade. So the mystery of the missing evidence is solved. The smoking gun is missing because the gun ate the bullet, the casing, the victim, and the crime scene, and then digested them all into nothing. The lack of evidence is the evidence. It is the chilling, silent testament to the efficiency of the hunter. It means the swallowed whole theory is not just a theory. It was a menu option. The swallowed whole theory is a chilling, perfect, and indirect case. The lack of evidence becomes the evidence. It's a terrifyingly neat argument, but what if we did have the smoking gun? What if the victim wasn't always swallowed whole? What if just once the monster was sloppy and left a receipt? Our journey takes us just south of the Turkana Basin, into what is now Tanzania. We are moving to a location that is, if anything, even more famous in the story of human origins. We are going to Olduvai Gorge. This is the place where Mary and Louis Leakey made their legendary discoveries of Homo habilis and Paranthropus. It is, along with Turkana, the other cradle of humankind. And as paleontologists, including Christopher Brochu, kept digging in these same Pliocene layers, they found another one, another giant skull, another set of colossal teeth, another 25-foot crocodile. But this one was different. It was found in the same fossil beds as Homo habilis and Paranthropus, and this time it was found with the smoking gun. They named this new species Crocodylus anthropophagus. This is not a subtle name. This is not a metaphor. This is the mainstream historical fact of its discovery. Anthropophagus is Greek. Anthropo meaning human. Phagus meaning to eat. They literally, officially, scientifically, named this animal the human-eating crocodile. You don't give a creature that name unless you have the receipts. And they had the receipts. In the exact same fossil beds, from the exact same 1.8 million-year-old time frame, they found what had been missing from Turkna. They found hominin bones from our ancestor, Homo habilis, bones from our close cousin, Paranthropus, and the bones were covered in bite marks. This was the smoking gun. This was the holy grail of this entire terrifying story. This was the proof. The scientific evidence that followed was a masterpiece of prehistoric forensics. The team analyzed the bite marks. They were deep, vicious, puncture and pull marks. They measured the spacing between the teeth. They measured the size of the individual punctures. And they ran the comparison. Could a modern Nile crocodile have made these marks? No, not even close. The marks were too big. The jaw that made them was too wide. Then they took the jaw and the teeth from the Crocodylus anthropophagus skull they had found just a few yards away, and they laid them over the bite marks. It was a perfect one-to-one, exact match. Historians still argue whether Anthropophagus and thorbjarnarsoni are sister species, or if one is a direct descendant of the other. But it doesn't matter. They were the same kind of monster. A 25-plus foot mega-croc. As a quirky and frankly unbelievably grim tidbit, this is the only extinct crocodilian that we have direct fossilized proof of having eaten our direct ancestors. The human eater isn't a nickname, it's a resume. The case is closed. The swallowed whole hypothesis from Turkana, which was a perfect theory, is now confirmed by the sloppy evidence from Olduvai. The question, what is the largest animal to ever hunt humans, is no longer a question. We have the answer. We have the monster. And now, we even have the victim's body. The case is closed. We have the monster, Crocodylus anthropophagus. We have the smoking gun, the bite-marked bones. But when you look closer, when you really look at the evidence, the story that fossil tells is, in some ways, even worse than swallowed whole. The truth is not just that you were eaten, it's that you were fought over. Let's pick up one of those fossils from Olduvai Gorge. It's a lower leg bone, a tibia from a Homo habilis. It's 1.8 million years old, and it's a Rosetta Stone of a terrible, terrible day. First, you see the obvious trauma. These are not scratches. These are holes. Deep, conical, gouging puncture marks that could only have been made by the massive, spike-like teeth of a giant crocodile. This is the mainstream historical fact of the find. And you can see where the teeth dragged, creating long, deep striae in the bone. This is the forensic signature. This is the puncture and pull of a crocodilian attack. You can see the death roll, 1.8 million years later, fossilized in the bone. This is the C. anthropophagus signature, clear as a fingerprint. But then, the paleontologists who were studying this bone, they saw something else, something that didn't fit. On the same bone, near the massive, crushing croc marks, there was a different set of marks. These were tiny, delicate, a series of parallel V-shaped scrapes. They looked for all the world like someone had taken a tiny rake and scratched the bone clean. This is the bizarre case from the original video, and we have scientific evidence for exactly what this is. This is not a crocodile mark. This is a cat mark. Specifically, this is the signature of a big cat's carnassial teeth, the sharp, shearing blade teeth on the side of their jaw. A cat uses these teeth not for biting, but for scraping, for getting the last stringy, stubborn bits of meat and tendon off a bone that it can't crack open. So let's reconstruct that terrible day in the Pliocene, using this one fossil as our script. You, the Homo habilis, are at the water's edge. The human-eater, sea anthropophagus, explodes from the reeds. The attack is a mess. It's not the clean, swallow-whole scenario, it's a sloppy till. The 25-foot giant rips, it tears, it rolls. Your leg is severed. The croc eats its fill. It gets most of you. But the lower leg bone, a piece it doesn't want, is left behind in the mud at the water's edge, still slick with you. Hours pass. The 6,000-pound croc is gone, digesting its human meal in the deep. But the smell of the kill, is now on the wind. And it draws in a new predator. A saber-toothed cat, perhaps a Machairodus or an early Megantherion, pads silently out of the tall grass. It too is an apex predator. It too is a monster. And it finds the leftovers. It finds your leg. It's not a meal, but it's a snack. The cat can't eat the bone, but it can clean it. It lies down, grips the bone between its paws, and begins its work. That scrape, scrape, scrape. That is the V-shaped mark. That is the sound of a saber-toothed cat, scraping the last stringy bits of you off your own tibia. This is the whole terrible story of the human experience, written on a single bone. You were at the absolute undisputed bottom of the Pliocene food chain. You were not just hunted by the largest animal to ever hunt humans. You were also simultaneously the leftover scraps for the other monsters. You were the victim for the crocodile and the scraps for the lion. As a quirky tidbit, this kind of fossil CSI is a real and fascinating field of science called taphonomy. It's the study of everything that happens to an organism after it dies. How it was killed, if it was scavenged, if it was moved by water, how it was buried, how it fossilized. That leg bone, that is a taphonomic masterpiece. And of course, this one fossil has sparked a whodunit. Paleontologists still argue whether the story happened exactly as we said. Could it be the reverse? Could the saber-tooth have killed you? And the crocodile was the one who scavenged the scraps, snapping up the leg the cat left behind? The marks are ambiguous. Who gets first dibs on eating us? The horrible answer is everyone. If the story ended there, it would be bad enough. A 27-foot, 6,000-pound human-eating crocodile that can swallow you whole or leave you as scraps for a saber-tooth, that is a complete nightmare. But we're not done. Because in a final, almost comical, Gothic flourish, in a last absurd insult, they were horned. This is not a metaphor. This is not an exaggeration. This is the mainstream historical fact of their anatomy. When paleontologists examined the massive skulls of these Pliocene giants, they found features that no modern crocodile has. Let's look at Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. Its skull was already a 5-foot-long hydraulic press, but on top of that, It had thick, raised rims of solid bone right over the top of its eye sockets. It gave the creature a heavy-browed, permanently angry look. It was a built-in bony scowl that would have been the last thing you ever saw. But its cousin, the human-eater Crocodylus anthropophagus, took this horror movie design a step further. It had the angry eyes, too, but it also had a set of prominent triangular flange-like horns, or ears of bone that stuck out from the side of its skull, just above its actual ear slits. It was a horned crocodile, in the most literal, terrifying sense. And this, of course, raises the big why. This is the scholarly debate that is still going on. What possible purpose could these bizarre, bony decorations serve? We have scientific evidence that they weren't weapons. They were too blunt, too thick. They weren't for fighting. So, what were they for? Hypothesis 1 is the most common, and it's all about show. They were display structures. They were biological billboards. In the high-stakes, violent world of giant crocodiles, a 27-foot male needs to advertise his dominance. Those horns, they were the crown. They were a way of saying, I am the biggest, baddest, meanest crocodile in this lake. Look at my horns. Do not mess with me. It was for intimidating rivals, and, perhaps, for impressing the 20-foot-long females. It was all about sexual selection. The same force that gives a peacock its tail gave the human eater its horns. Hypothesis 2 is a little more inside baseball, a fringe tidbit of a theory, but it makes a lot of sense. You have to remember, the Pliocene lakes were crowded. It's very possible that C. thorbjarnarsoni, C. anthropophagus, and the ancestor of the modern Nile crocodile were all living in the same lakes at the same time. So, how do you tell each other apart? When you are a 20-foot female croc, and you see a log with eyes, how do you know if that's a mate of your species, or just a competitor from that other lineage? The horns, they may have been a simple visual ID card, a species recognition signal. Ah, you have the side horns, you are one of us. But honestly, the why doesn't matter, not to you. Let's put you, the 80-pound Homo habilis, back at the water's edge. You are hiding in the reeds. You are scanning the water for a log. You are looking for that subtle bump of eyes, and you see it. But this log has a bony scowl. This log has horns. This is the psychological impact. This is the final boss level of terror. It is not just an animal anymore. It's a monster. It's an other. This is the image of the devil burned into our ancestral memory, 1.8 million years before we had a word for it. The reptile in the water, the serpent, is not just a snake. It is a horned serpent. It is the original real-life dragon. So let's put it all together. Let's make this real. For this section, you are back. You are the 80-pound, 4-foot-tall Homo habilis. The monster is real. The horns are real. And you are thirsty. The sun has been up for 3 hours. It's not hot yet, but the Pliocene sun is a heavy white blanket. The air is still. Your throat is dust. It's a dry, scratching, constant need. It's not just you. Your small group, maybe 15 of us, is huddling in the thin shade of an acacia tree. The children are weak, their movements slow. The old man, the 20-year-old who leads your group, knows it. You must drink. You must go to the water. You move, not as one, but as a burst. A quick, low, chattering scurry from the safe tree line across the 50 yards of open, sun-baked mud to the cover of the reed bank. This is the first gauntlet. You are exposed to the saber-tooth from behind, but you make it. You are in the reeds, and the world changes. The air is cooler here. It smells of wet earth, of decaying plants, of fish. You can't see anything. The reeds are 10 feet tall, a thick, green, hissing wall. The only sound is the tss of the wind brushing the tops and the zzz of a million insects. You follow the path, a tunnel through the reeds, worn down by us and by everything else. You can smell the musky, oily scent of a hippo that was here hours ago. You freeze. You listen. Nothing. You move on. And then you are there. The safe spot. It's a small inlet, a little bay in the riverbank, where the water is clear and shallow. You can see the bottom. It feels safer than the main channel. But this is the worst part. The waiting. You don't just run down and drink. That is how you get erased. That is how Gronk from the other group disappeared last moon. No. You wait. You and 2 others. You are the lookouts. The rest of the group huddles back in the reeds, silent. Your new 600cc superpower brain is on fire. It is a threat detection machine running at full capacity. You are scanning. Your eyes move, scan, scan, scan. You are looking for wrongness. You look at the water. It's a perfect brown, glassy mirror. It reflects the sky. Too perfect. Too still. The only sound is the buzzing of the insects, a high, thin that is the sound of silence. You scan the far bank. Nothing. You scan the floating log jam, 100 yards upstream. A log? Or a log with teeth? You stare. You will it to move. It doesn't. You scan the water right in front of you. And this is the trick. The sun is hitting the surface and it's creating a shimmer, a mirage. This is a quirky tidbit of Pliocene life. Your own eyes and the heat of the sun are conspiring against you. Is that shimmer a ripple from a fish, or a ripple from it? You can't be sure. And this is the terror. It's not the attack. It's the waiting for the attack. It's the silence. It's the stillness. And then you see it. 50 yards out in the main channel. Just 2 bumps. 2 small, dark knots on the surface of the water. They are not logs. They are not shimmer. They are eyes. They are perfectly still, and they are facing you. The monster, the 6,000-pound, 27-foot horned, it is watching you. It knows you are here. It knew you were coming. It was waiting for you. And now, the game begins. You wait, it waits. The sun beats down. Your throat is agony. The children in the reeds are whimpering. You have to shush them. A sharp, guttural st, because it can hear. You are locked in a 3-million-year-old stalemate. Who will first? This is the choice. This is the evolutionary sieve. This is the test. Every single one of your ancestors for 2 million years had to pass this exact test every single day. What do? Do you risk it? Do you trust that it is too far away, that the safe spot is actually safe? Do you run down, scoop, and run back, all in 10 seconds? Do you wait? Do you try to outweight a reptile? A creature that can sit unmoving for 8 hours? You will die of thirst first. Or do you give up? Do you motion to the group, no, not here. Too much danger. Do you go back? Back through the reeds, back across the other killing field, to try another spot that will have another monster? Paleontologists still argue whether this exact pressure, this terror at the water's edge, is what drove us. Did it drive us to stand upright? To evolve bipedalism just to get 2 feet higher? To see over the damn reeds? Or did it drive us to get smarter? To learn to throw rocks first? You look at the eyes. You look at your group. You make the choice. And this is the scientific evidence. This scene is not a fantasy. This is the reality. The mainstream historical fact is that we find our ancestors' fossils where we find the water Cubifora, Olduvai Gorge. They are all lacustrine or riverine deposits. We know they lived here. We know the monster lived here. And we know they had to drink. This choice, this single agonizing risk vs. reward calculation made every day, is what built your brain. This is the predator that made us human. And you make that choice. You live or you die. You drink or you wait. And this choice, this daily agonizing watering hole problem, it couldn't just be a problem. It had to do something to you. It couldn't just be a terror. It had to be a tool. This is predator-driven evolution. This is the evolutionary sieve in its most brutal, literal form. The monster in the water wasn't just a predator. It was a filter. It was a sculptor. It was making you. Think about it. The you who just ran down to the water. The you who was impatient, who was impulsive, who didn't wait, who didn't scan. That you was selected out of the gene pool. That you was a bad idea, an 80-pound splash, a small burp in the Pliocene, and then gone. Erased, swallowed whole. A genetic dead end. So who survived? Who lived to make the choice the next day? The you who waited. The you who remembered. The you who planned. This is the great scholarly debate that rages in paleoanthropology. What made us smart? What drove this insane, runaway expansion of the hominid brain? We went from 600 cubic centimeters in Homo habilis to over 1,400 cubic centimeters in Homo sapiens. Why? Our brains are expensive. A modern human brain uses 20% of our body's calories, just idling. You don't evolve a 20% calorie-sucking supercomputer just to pick fruit. You don't need a supercomputer to run away from a lion. But what if you do need it to outthink a reptile? What if the 27-foot horned crocodile was the ultimate intelligence test? A lion is smart, but it's a hot-blooded smart. It's predictable. It gets hungry, it hunts, it sleeps. But the crocodile, it's cold-blooded smart. It's alien. It's a patience predator. It can wait. For days. It can learn. It can remember. It is a mainstream historical fact that modern crocodiles are far, far smarter than we give them credit for. They can recognize individuals. They can learn hunters' patterns. They can plan. And your monster, your 6,000-pound thorbjarnarsoni, it had 2 million years to study you. So who survived? The you, who had a memory. The you who could say, "Don't go to that inlet. Gronk got taken there. It knows that spot." The you who could plan, "We will go to the other spot. We will throw rocks in the water first. We will wait, and then we will drink." This is the cognitive arms race. The crocodile is an ambush predator. So, you had to invent foresight. You had to invent the future. You had to run simulations in your head. If I go, then it will. But if we go, then it might. That is the birth of intelligence. It's not abstract thought. It's not getting eaten thought. And it wasn't just you. This is the other half of the equation. A single 80-pound Homo habilis is a snack. A group of 20 80-pound Homo habilis, all yelling, all screaming, all throwing rocks, all waving their arms, with 3 of them acting as lookouts while the others drink. That is a problem. That is an annoyance. That might just make the 6,000-pound croc decide, "Ugh, too much work, too noisy. I'll wait for the hippo." It's quieter. The monster didn't just make you smarter. The monster made you us. It forced you to cooperate. It punished selfishness. The you who tried to sneak a drink alone, eaten. The you who waited for the group, who shared in the lookout duty, who trusted the us, that you survived. This is the scientific evidence that is so stunning. Right here, in this exact Pliocene window, as we are living beside these monsters, our brains are exploding in size. We see scientific evidence of this in the fossil record. The leap from Australopithecus, 450 cubic centimeters, to Homo habilis, 600 cubic centimeters, is massive. This isn't a tweak. This is a redesign. And it's happening in the exact crucible of terror. The social brain hypothesis argues we got smart to deal with each other. But maybe it's simpler. Maybe we were forced to become social, to deal with it. The tribe, us, was the only weapon we had. And speaking of weapons, what about that superpower? That Alderwan stone chopper? That sharp flake? It's useless as a weapon against thorbjarnarsoni. You can't fight a 27-foot crocodile with a sharp rock. You might as well try to fight a tank with a penknife. But that's not what the tool was for. You weren't fighting the monster. You were using the monster. Think about it. That 13-foot-tall, 14-ton Dinotherium. That terrible beast. You can't kill that either. No, but the crocodile can. So you wait. You watch the water. And when the water god does make a kill, when the 6,000-pound croc drags down the 14-ton elephant in a churning, thrashing apocalypse of water and noise, you wait. And after the croc has eaten its 500-pound fill and has dragged the 13-ton rest of the carcass to the bank to ripen, then you go. Then us, the 20-strong pack of marrow suckers, we dash in. We use the lookouts to watch for the saber-tooth who is also coming. And we use that superpower, that sharp flake, to do the one thing the croc can't do, to slice, to cut, to butcher. You run in, you slice off a 50-pound hunk of meat, and you run. Back to the safe tree. This is the quirky and frankly brilliant tidbit. You aren't just surviving the monster. You are living off the monster. You are scavenging the scavenger. You are the jackal to the crocodile's lion. See thorbjarnarsoni is your provider. It is the terrible god that hunts you at the water's edge and feeds you with its leftovers. This is the Pliocene, a 2-million-year-long contract with a monster. It was a tax. The tax was some of us. A Gronk here, a Zorg there, a tax of terror paid every day. And the payment, the reward for paying the tax, was us. It was our brain. It was our tribe. It was intelligence. We were forged not by fire, but by fear. The watering hole problem was a daytime problem. It was a terror dictated by the sun. But what happened when the sun went down? For you, Homo habilis, the terror just changed. It inverted. During the day, the 27-foot crocodile owned the water, and the land was a gauntlet. You had to run to get away from the reeds. But at night, the roles reversed. The land, the open savanna, that now belonged to a new set of monsters. The saber-toothed cats? Yes, but also the pack-hunting, cackling hyenodon. The night was their kingdom. You couldn't be on the land. You were trapped. So where did you go? You were caught in the Great Pliocene Trap. The land is death by lion. The water is death by horned crocodile. You are literally, physically, trapped between the monster on the land and the monster in the water. Your only safe spot was up. You and your small, terrified us would scramble into the high, thin branches of an acacia tree, a sleeping tree, and you would huddle there for 8 hours, in the dark, in the cold, listening to the sore cough of the leopard in the next tree, listening to the whoop of the hyenas circling your tree, waiting for one of you, a child, an elder, to slip, and listening to the splash. That deep, heavy whoomp from the riverbank, just 100 yards away, as the 6,000-pound croc took down a night-drinking antelope. You are surrounded, you are cold, you are terrified, and you are powerless. This trap. This cannot be the end of the story. This pressure cooker of terror must have a release. And it did. It led to the single greatest discovery in human history. The discovery that lifted us from prey to predator. The taming of fire. Now, the mainstream historical fact is that the timeline is messy. Did you, Homo habilis, have fire? Probably not. You saw fire. You feared fire when a lightning strike set the savanna ablaze. But you couldn't make it. You couldn't control it. The real evidence, the smoking gun of controlled fire, appears with your descendant. The sieve of the Pliocene, the croc test. It worked. It forged a new you. A you with a bigger brain. A you who was taller. A you who was smarter. It forged Homo erectus upright man. And around 1.5 million years ago, in this exact same part of Africa, we find the first evidence of a campfire, a hearth, a controlled burn. And this leads to the great scholarly debate. Why? Why did Homo erectus do it? Why did they tame the red flower? The obvious answer is for warmth. And yes, the nights were cold. The obvious answer is for cooking. We have scientific evidence that our brains and our guts changed when we started eating cooked meat. It pre-digested our food, unlocking a massive calorie boost that fed our growing brains. But what if the first reason, the primal reason, what if it wasn't for warmth or food? What if it was for light? What if it was a weapon? This is the Prometheus moment. As a quirky and telling fringe tidbit, think of the Greek myth. Fire wasn't invented by humans. It was stolen from the gods. It was a divine, god-level power. And the gods, the 13-foot Deinotherium, the 6,000-pound thorbjarnarsoni, they were the gods of your world, and you stole their one weakness, a burning branch, a 4-foot-long, smoking, hissing stick, plucked from a wild fire. That is the first real weapon you ever had. It is the ultimate anti-predator tool. Think about it. That saber-toothed cat, that pack of hyenas, that night kingdom of theirs. You break the night. You shatter it. A 5-foot-tall Homo erectus is just prey. But a 5-foot-tall Homo erectus, holding a star, waving a branch of pure, dancing, blinding light, a lion will not approach that. A hyena will not cross that line. Their superpower, their night vision, is ruined by your new toy. You are weaponizing the sun. And the crocodile, the monster in the water. Its eyes are built for the dark. They are night vision goggles. They have a tapetum lucidum, a mirror behind the retina, that gathers every speck of moonlight, and you point your sun stick at the water, and that light hits those goggles and blinds them. You have just ruined the monster's ambush. The campfire, that is the invention. It is a bubble, a 20-foot-wide bubble of safety. It is the first time in 2 million years that your ancestors could sit on the ground, the first time they could sleep, the first time they could rest. It's the first human space, the first living room, a no-go zone for monsters. And it was the croc, and the lion, and the terror that forced you to tame it. You didn't invent fire. You were driven to it. You were hunted into the arms of the red flower. It was the only refuge left. You've done it. You, as Homo erectus, have tamed the red flower. You've created the bubble of fire. You can sit on the ground, you can sleep, you can rest. The 2 million-year-long reign of terror is broken. The croc and the lion are still out there, in the dark, but they are outside the circle of light. They are outside the us. But this is the thing. The monster can be kept out. But the fear? The fear is already inside. The fear is in you. The 2 million-year arms race. The 2 million-year sieve. It did something to your brain. It left a scar. A permanent, heritable, useful scar. Let's do a little thought experiment. You, the modern Homo sapiens, listening to this. Why? Are you afraid of the dark? You know there is no saber-toothed cat in your hallway. You know a 27-foot croc is not in your closet. But when you turn out the light, why does your heart, just for a second, beat a little faster? Why do you walk a little quicker past that dark, open doorway? And the water. Let's talk about the water. Why do we have a primal, irrational fear of what's under us in the water? You know, that feeling you're swimming in a lake, or even the ocean. The water is deep. It's dark. You can't see the bottom. And something brushes your leg. It's just a piece of seaweed. You know it's seaweed, but in the nanosecond between the touch and the realization, your entire nervous system explodes. Your heart is in your throat. Adrenaline. Panic. Get out. Why? Why does that happen? Why, as a quirky and frankly universal tidbit, does this even happen in a swimming pool? You'll be swimming in a perfectly clear, chlorinated concrete box, and your brain will just whisper. What if there's something in the drain? That right there, that is the ghost of Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. That is the echo of the Pliocene. This is the archetype. This is the ancestral memory. Now, that's not a literal memory. You don't literally remember a 27-foot horned crocodile. That's not how it works. Paleontologists and evolutionary psychologists still argue whether ancestral memory is a real, literal recording. But the more accepted idea is one of prepared learning. This is the scientific evidence, and it is fascinating. You can take a modern human baby, a baby that has never seen a snake, never seen a spider, never seen a crocodile, and you can show them pictures, a flower, a car, a snake, a spider. Their heart rate, their stress response will spike when they see the snake or the spider. They will react to those primal threats in a way they do not react to the modern threat, like a gun or a car. It's easier to teach a lab monkey, or a human, to be afraid of a snake, than it is to teach them to be afraid of a flower. The fear is pre-wired. Your brain comes out of the box with the capacity for that specific fear, ready to be activated. Your brain right now still has the 2-million-year-old software. It still has the Crocodylus module. We still have the Homo habilis brain, the Homo erectus brain, inside our modern skull. It's the lizard brain, the primal brain, the amygdala. It's the part that doesn't listen to reason. It's the part that screams, "Seaweed is a monster," before your smart Homo sapiens cortex can say, "Relax, it's just a plant." That 2-million-year arms race, it was a software development program. It programmed fear, not as a feeling, but as a survival reflex. And in doing so, it created the monster. Think about it. The Homo habilis, you didn't have language. You didn't have mythology. You just had it. The thing in the water. The thing in the dark. But as our brains got bigger, as we developed language, as we started sitting round that campfire, we had to explain it. We had to give it a name. The 6,000-pound animal, it became a force. It became a concept. It became the great fear. It was the physical embodiment of the thing that waits in the dark. It was so powerful, so other, so alien. It couldn't just be an animal. It was more. This is the birth of the monster. It's a mainstream historical fact that every human culture on Earth, from the deserts of Australia to the ice of the Arctic, has monster stories. And they are always the same monsters. The giant cat, the leopard, the lion, the slithering thing, the snake, the serpent, and above all, the monster in the water. Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni, the 27-foot, 6,000-pound horned human-eater. It is the original monster under the bed, except for 2 million years. The bed was the riverbank, and the monster was real. We have been forged by this monster. It made us smart. It made us us. It programmed our deepest, most primal fears. Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni, the 27-foot horned human-eater, was the dark god of the Pliocene. So, where is it? Why aren't there 27-foot, 6,000-pound horned crocodiles in Lake Turkana today? You, as a modern human, can go there. You can stand on that exact same shore. It's still dangerous. The modern Nile crocodiles are there, and they are a threat. But they are normal. They are 16, maybe 18 feet. They are not the city bus-sized monsters of our story. What happened? What kills a 6,000-pound god? The answer is the exact same lesson that we learned from 60 million years ago. It's the lesson of Megalodon. The answer is physics. The answer is that size is not a strength. Size is a weakness. Size is a bet. A 27-foot crocodile, a 100-ton shark. They are a bet that the world will stay exactly the same, a bet that the buffet will always be open. And the one thing the world never does is stay the same. The monster wasn't killed by a bigger monster. It was killed by math. It was an accounting problem. It was climate change. This is the mainstream historical fact of our monster's demise. The Pliocene, that lush, wet, humid paradise that you, Homo habilis, lived in, ended. The Pliocene-Pleistocene transition began. The thermostat of the planet dropped. The ice ages began in the north. And in Africa, this meant one catastrophic thing. It got drier. The paradise dried up. We have scientific evidence for this that is undeniable. It comes from inside Lake Turkana itself. Scientists have drilled deep into the lake bed. They have pulled up sediment cores, which are time machines. They are pages from the book of the earth. And those pages, they tell the story. They show that, starting around 2 million years ago, the deep, freshwater lake starts to change. The pollen in the mud shows the lush gallery forests disappearing, replaced by scrub grass and desert plants. The chemistry of the mud shows salinity spikes. The lake was shrinking. The paradise was evaporating. The massive, deep, 50-mile-wide lake was becoming a shallower, saltier, harsher puddle of what it once was. And this is the trap. This is the specialist trap that Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni could not escape. Think about it. Why was it 27 feet long? Because its food was Dinotherium. Its food was the 10-foot horned Pelorovis. Its job in the ecosystem was giant killer. But what happens when the climate changes? The rain stops. The forests die. The Dinotherium, also a specialist, its food disappears, and so the Dinotherium dies out. The giant killer now has no giants to kill. But it's worse than that. It's a habitat problem. You are a 27-foot, 6,000-pound reptile. You cannot hunt in a puddle. Your superpower, your ambush, it requires deep, murky water. It requires water deep enough to hide a 27-foot-long, 6,000-pound body. And the puddles, the shallow salty remains of Lake Turkana, they exposed the giant. It was a 6,000-pound sitting duck. It was too big to hide. It was too big to move. It was too big to survive. Historians still argue whether the final nail in the coffin was just the climate, or if your new descendant, the fire-wielding, spear-throwing, smarter Homo erectus, helped push those megafauna that the croc ate over the edge. But the result is the same. The buffer closed. The refuge dried up. The god starved. And so, who won? Who inherited the 6-million-year-old kingdom of the croc? A scrappy, smaller, less specialized weasel of a crocodile. The winner was Crocodylus niloticus, the modern Nile crocodile. Think about it. It was the generalist. It was the jack of all trades. The 27-foot thorbjarnarsoni was above eating a fish. It was above eating a bird. It needed the 14-ton Deinotherium. But the 12-foot, 600-pound Nile crocodile, it'll eat a fish, it'll eat a frog, it'll eat a bird. It'll eat an 80-pound hominin. It doesn't care. It can survive in the puddles. It can survive on the scraps. It can hide in 2 feet of water. This is the great, quirky, and ironic tidbit of this entire story. The modern Nile crocodile, the one we fear, is not the pinnacle of croc evolution. It's the survivor. It's the runt that won. It's the mammal that scurried past the dinosaur's feet and inherited the earth, or at least the Nile. The great horned giant, the largest animal to ever hunt humans, the sculptor of our brain, was too big. It was a failed experiment. It specialized itself right into extinction. The monster is gone. The 27-foot, 6,000-pound horned Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni is extinct. The 2-million-year-long reign of terror is over. You survived. You, as Homo erectus and later Homo sapiens, survived. You won. You outlived the god. But the god left a ghost. The monster is dead, but the memory of the monster, the Crocodylus module that it programmed into your brain, that is very much alive. The fear remains. And as you got smarter, as you sat around that bubble of fire, night after night, generation after generation, as you developed language and stories, you had to explain that fear. You had to give that ghost a name. You had to give that ancestral memory a shape. So, let's talk about dragons. Why? Dragons? Why does every human culture on Earth, cultures that never spoke to each other, cultures separated by 10,000 miles and 10,000 years, why did they all, independently, invent the exact same monster? Think about it. The dragon. What is it? It's a mainstream historical fact that the word itself, dragon, comes from the ancient Greek drakon, and it doesn't mean monster. It means a serpent. But more specifically, it means to see clearly, or the one with the deadly gaze, that stare, the unblinking reptilian, it's waiting for me, stare. The exact same stare you met at the watering hole. The dragon is not an invention. It is a memory. It is a composite monster, built from all the terrors of the Pliocene, all stitched together by your Homo sapiens imagination. Let's build a dragon, using the Pliocene parts list. First, it's a reptile. It's scaly. It has claws. It's cold. It's alien. That's thorbjarnarsoni. Second, where does it live? It always lives in a cave, or a swamp, or a lake. It lives in the dark place. That's thorbjarnarsoni, in the refuge of the reeds. Third, what does it do? It hoards treasure, like a trophy, or maybe just the bones of its kills. And it waits. It's a patience monster. That's thorbjarnarsoni, waiting for you. Fourth, the claws. It has terrible, ripping claws. That's the saber-toothed cat, the other monster whose parts got merged into the story. Fifth, the wings. Where did the wings come from? Maybe the terror birds, the 10-foot-tall dinosaur bird, Forus racidae, that also haunted your ancestors. It's a composite. And finally, the fire. Why does the dragon breathe fire? Wait, does it? Or does the hero use fire against it? This is the inversion. The dragon doesn't breathe fire. You, Homo erectus, discovered fire to keep the dragon at bay. The fire is the weapon that you used to fight the real monster. And 2 million years later, the story got twisted. The weapon of the hero, you, became the weapon of the monster, the dragon. This is the ghost. The dragon is the fear given a name. But what if it's more literal? This leads to a fascinating scholarly debate, a brilliant theory from the historian of science, Adrienne Mayer. In her book, The First Fossil Hunters, she asks a simple question. The ancient Greeks, they wrote about griffins. They wrote about giants. Where did they get those ideas? Her answer? They found the fossils. We have scientific evidence that the lands of the ancient Greeks are littered with the Pliocene fossils of Deinotherium, the terrible beast, and mastodons. The Greeks, finding a 6-foot-tall mastodon femur, what could it be? It had to be a giant. They found the skulls of Protoceratops, a small dinosaur with a beak and frills. And what did they call it? A griffin. They were doing exactly what we are doing. They were finding the monsters and trying to explain them. And this brings us to the final chilling fringe tidbit of a theory. We know that Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni lived in Africa. We know that early Homo sapiens evolved in Africa, long after thorbjarnarsoni was extinct. Now, play the Adrienne Mayer game. Imagine you are an early Homo sapiens. 100,000 years ago, you are walking by the dry, ancient riverbed of Lake Turkana. You are digging for water, and your hand hits. It's a skull. You dig it out, you and your us. You pull this thing from the mud. It is 6 feet long. It is rock. It has teeth, the size of bananas. It has a bony, angry scowl. And it has horns. What is it? What word? What story? What concept do you have for a 6-foot-long, rock-hard, horned serpent head that you just pulled from the earth? You don't have one, so you invent one. And that might be the birth of the literal dragon. It wasn't just a memory. It wasn't just fear. It was evidence. It was the smoking gun found 1.8 million years too late. It was the skull of the dark god, unearthed by its own creation. We've seen how a literal fossil, a 6-foot-long horned skull, could have inspired a local dragon story. But that's a local story. That's one group of early humans, 100,000 years ago, finding one bone. That doesn't explain everyone. This is the bigger, deeper, and frankly, more terrifying mystery. We have to go global. Why? Why does every single human culture, on every single continent, cultures that never spoke to each other, cultures separated by vast oceans and 10,000 years of history, why did they all, independently, invent the exact same monster? This isn't just a dragon. This is a universal human archetype. This is the scientific evidence that evolutionary psychology points to. A fear so profound, so fundamental, that it's not learned, it's inherited. It is, in the most literal sense, part of the human starter pack. Let's just look at the list. You go to ancient Hebrew mythology. You get Leviathan, the chaos monster, the unmaking creature, a serpent of the deep. As a quirky and etymological tidbit, the word Leviathan literally means the twisted or the coiled one. It's a coiling, twisting thing in the water, the primordial enemy of order. You go to the ancient Greeks, you get the Hydra. Where does it live? In the swamp, the Lernaean swamp, a multi-headed serpent monster that lives in the reeds, a monster that, when you cut off its head, 2 more grow back, a perfect, if accidental, metaphor for the real croc problem. You kill one, and 2 more invisible ones are still there, waiting for their turn. You go to ancient Babylon. You get Tiamat, the goddess of the primordial ocean of chaos. And she is a giant sea serpent. You go to ancient Egypt. This is the most obvious one. This is the mainstream historical fact that is so on the nose it's almost not a myth at all. The ultimate god of chaos, the enemy of the sun god Ra, the lord of darkness, is Apep. And Apep is a giant serpent, a giant crocodile. The two are used interchangeably. He lives in the Nile. He is the monster that waits in the water, the Nile, to eat the sun, Ra, every single night. The entire Egyptian religion is a daily battle between order, the sun god, and the giant crocodile serpent in the river. This is not a coincidence. Historians and folklorists still argue whether these are all diffused myths, one master story that spread across the world from a single origin, or if it's convergent mythology. The idea that every human culture, independently, looked at the dark water and felt the same ancestral fear and invented the exact same monster. But what if the answer is both? What if the master story wasn't a story at all? What if the master story was the Pliocene? What if the master story was Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni, and the echo of that 2 million-year-long war is just still in our brains. This is the why. This is the cultural echo of a 2 million-year-long reality. The water is a paradox. It is a duality. You must go to the water. The water is life. It gives you drink. It gives you food. It gives you reeds to hide in. And the water is death. It is chaos. It is the unseeable place. It hides the monster. It holds the 6,000-pound horned thing that eats your family. Life and death in the exact same place. This is the origin of chaos and order. The land, the campfire, the sun god Ra, that is order. You can see. You are safe. The water, the night, the deep. That is chaos. You cannot see. You are prey. And Erpep, Leviathan, Hydra, Tiamat. These are just the names that we, as smart Homo sapiens, gave to the ghost. The old man of the lake, the boogeyman, the devil. They are all Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. It is the original Leviathan, not a metaphor, not a myth. The literal 27-foot-long, 6,000-pound horned chaos monster that you, as Homo habilis, had to make a bargain with just to get a drink of water. It is the original dragon. It is the original serpent. It is the original sin of being 80 pounds and thirsty. The dragon is a ghost. The Leviathan is a myth. The real 6,000-pound horned Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni is gone, extinct, a fossil. The dark god of the Pliocene is dead. But the monster is not gone. It's just smaller. The job description, the ecological niche of giant predator that waits in the water, is still open, and it is still filled. The Crocodylus niloticus that won the throne, the scrappy survivor, it is still there. And every now and then, one of them remembers how to be giant. We have to go back to Gustav, the legendary Nile crocodile of Burundi, the one rumored to be 20+ feet, the one rumored to have eaten 300 people, the one rumored to have armor so thick it can't be killed, that he just ignores bullets. Sound familiar? Gustav. This is the quirky and frankly vital tidbit. Gustav is not a monster. He is most likely just a very old, very large, very successful male crocodile. He is a throwback. He is what happens when a modern Nile croc survives long enough to almost touch the sizes of his ancestors. But we modern, smart Homo sapiens, we look at him and our Crocodylus module, our ancestral software, it screams. We project the myth onto him. We need him to be a monster. We need him to be unkillable and supernatural, because our lizard brain remembers. Gustav is the ghost of thorbjarnarsoni, made real. He is the echo of the dark god. And it's not just the crocodile. The echo is on land too. We have to go back to Savo, to the man-eaters. The mainstream historical fact is that the 1898 railway lions were just the most famous, not the only. The Tsavo region of Kenya has always had a lion problem. This led to scientific evidence from decades of modern research. Scientists like Dr. Bruce Patterson, who studied the Tsavo lions for over 20 years, found that, yes, the reputation is real. The lions in this one part of the world are different. They are more aggressive. They are more prone to opportunistic encounters with humans. And this is the scholarly debate. Scientists still debate whether this is a genetic tradition, a man-eating culture that is literally passed down from mother to cub, the mom taught me hypothesis, or if it's just that the Tsavo ecosystem is so harsh, so dry, so brutal, that the lions there are always just one bad hunt away from starvation, and a slow, soft human is just an easier meal. The injury hypothesis, from Section 3, is still the most likely trigger, but the pattern, the frequency, in Tsavo is unsettling. It's an echo. It's a pocket of the Pliocene, still existing in our modern world. This is the point. The super predator has changed. We, Homo sapiens, with our fire, our spears, our rifles, our us, we are the giant now. We are the apex predator of planet Earth. We are the monster that hunts the other monsters. But every now and then, an individual, a rogue tiger in the Sundarbans, a problem grizzly in the Arctic, a Gustav, a Tsavo lion, an individual reminds us. It reminds us that our contract with nature, the one where we are the masters, is a very new, very thin, very fragile piece of paper. It reminds us of the old ways. And that is the shudder. You know the feeling. You are at a zoo. You are safe. You are the master. You are eating popcorn. You are staring through 3 inches of safety glass at a 500-pound Siberian tiger. And the tiger stops pacing. It turns. Its head, the size of a boulder, swivels, and it looks at you. It doesn't see you. It scans you. The way you, Homo habilis, scanned the water, it locks eyes. And in that nanosecond, the popcorn is gone. The zoo is gone. The safety glass vanishes. And all that is left is you and it. Your heart stops. The hair on your arms stands up. You feel a cold, dropping void in your stomach. That is the shudder. That is the echo. That is your 2-million-year-old software, the Crocodylus module, the saber-tooth module, screaming. It is the ghost of Homo habilis inside you, Homo sapiens, reminding you that for 3 million years you were food. The shudder is real. The ghost is real. And for some of us, for many of us, that echo is so loud, so persistent, that we can't accept the monster is gone. We need it to still be here. We want it to still be here. And this is the shadow world, where the ghost of the Pliocene becomes the cryptid of the modern day. Let's start with the most famous monster in the water of all, The Loch Ness Monster. Nessie. The mainstream historical fact is that there is zero credible evidence for a 60-foot-long plesiosaur living in a 20-mile-long lake in Scotland. We have scientific evidence, from massive lake-wide sonar sweeps to more recently eDNA analysis, that shows nothing. There's just eels. Lots of very large eels. But does that stop us? Does that end the hunt? No. We keep looking. We keep hoping. And it's not just Nessie. This is a global phenomenon. Every culture, every large body of dark water has its thing. This brings us to the fringe tidbit on a grand scale. Mokele Mbembe. You go to the Congo River Basin, the deepest, most remote, lost world of a jungle on the planet, and you ask the local pygmy tribes, and they will tell you about Mokele Mbembe. The name translates to the one who stops the flow of rivers. And what is it? It is not a crocodile. It is not a hippo. They know what those are. This is other. They describe it as the size of an elephant, but with a long neck and a long tail and a small head. They describe a dinosaur, a sauropod, living right now in the swamps of the Congo. Western explorers have spent decades and millions of dollars searching for it. They find nothing. No bones, no tracks, no irrefutable proof. And this is the real question. The why. Why do we do this? Why do we smart, modern, scientific? Homo sapiens want so desperately to believe. Why do we search for these monsters in a world that, we are told, has no monsters left? This is the ultimate scholarly debate. Is this cultural memory? Is that Crocodylus module in our brain? That Pliocene ghost, so loud, so hardwired, that our brain expects a giant monster in the water? Is our brain programmed to find the 27-foot croc, and when it can't find one, it just invents one? Does our brain project the ancestral fear onto a log or a wave or a very large eel and call it Nessie? Are we so pre-wired to expect a monster that the absence of a monster feels wrong? Or is it something more? That we miss them? Is the hunt for cryptids, the hunt for Mokele Mbembe, the hunt for Bigfoot, is it a search, a quest, a homesickness? Is it that we are bored? Bored by our safe, modern, zoo-glass world? Are we bored, Bo, by a world without 6,000-pound horned crocodiles? The lost world is not a place. The lost world is a time. The lost world is the Pliocene. The search for cryptids is the search for the Pliocene. It's a search for that lost world where giants were real, where monsters were real, and we were the small, 4-foot-tall, terrified heroes of our own story. We are looking for the dragon, because deep down we know the dragon is what made us. And this is the final beautiful truth. You don't need to invent mokele mbembe. You don't need to hope for Nessie. We know. The monster in the water was real. We know the giant killer was real. We know the horned serpent was real. We just have the name wrong. The name is not Mokele Mbembe. The name is not Leviathan. The name is Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni, and we are its creation. But the story doesn't end there. The monster dies. The fear remains. The ghost becomes a dragon. And you keep evolving, the Sev of the Pliocene, the 2-million-year croc test, the fire test. It worked. It worked better than you could have ever imagined. Your brain, that 600 cubic centimeter engine of fear in Homo habilis, that 900 cubic centimeter fire tamer in Homo erectus, it kept going. It ran away. It became the 1,400 cubic centimeter supercomputer of Homo sapiens. And this is the final, great, and terrible twist. This is the flip. You are now Homo sapiens. You are the wise man. You are us. And you have a new superpower. It's not just fire. It's not just a sharp rock. Your superpower is abstraction. It's imagination. It's the ability to look at a rock and a stick and imagine a spear. It's the ability to look at a stick and a string and imagine a bow. It's the ability to look at a stick and a lever and imagine an atlatl, a spear thrower, a mainstream historical fact of engineering, a simple lever that multiplies the force of your arm, that allows you, a 150-pound Homo sapiens, to throw a spear with the kinetic force of a truck. Your brain is no longer just a threat detection machine. Your brain is now a physics engine. It is a weapon design lab. And this is the moment that the food chain breaks. The 2-million-year-old contract is shattered. You are no longer the scavenging rat. You are no longer the marrow sucker. You are the new monster. You are the largest animal to hunt. Let's go back to the Pleistocene, 50,000 years ago, to your Ice Age ancestors. They are not huddling in a tree. They are not hiding from the cave lion. They are hunting the cave lion. A pack of us. 10 Homo sapiens, us, with our atlatls. Us with our fire. Us with our abstraction. Our language, our ability to plan, you go left, you go right. Gronk, you throw the fire stick into the cave mouth, now. The 700-pound cave lion is no match for a 1,400 cubic centimeter brain. The pack of dire wolves? You, Homo sapiens, have allied with the other wolves. The grey ones. You have domesticated your rival. You have turned their superpower, the pack, into your superpower. Your pack now has wolf scouts. And the mammoth? The 14-foot-tall, 10-ton behemoth? The Dinotherium? The terrible beast that even the horned crocodile had trouble with? You, Homo sapiens. You eat those. You hunt them. You invented the cliff hunt, the abstract idea of using the landscape itself as a weapon. You use fire to spook the 10-ton herd and funnel them over a cliff. This is new. This is different. This is terrifying. The hunter has become the hunted. And this leads to the greatest mystery and tragedy of our own age. The mainstream historical fact of the Quaternary extinction event. It's a timeline, and it's an accusation. Homo sapiens evolves in Africa. 300,000 years ago. Homo sapiens leaves Africa. 70,000 years ago. Homo sapiens arrives in Australia. 65,000 years ago. And 60,000 years ago, the megafauna of Australia, the 20-foot-long goanna, the 1,000-pound giant wombat, vanishes. Every megafauna animal on the continent disappears. Homo sapiens arrives in North America 15,000 years ago, and 13,000 years ago. The woolly mammoth vanishes. The Smilodon vanishes. The short-faced bear vanishes. The dire wolf vanishes. 75% of all megafauna animals in North America disappear in an eye blink of geologic time. This is the overkill hypothesis. The smoking gun is us. Now, paleontologists and climate scientists still argue whether this is the whole story. Was it us? Was it our new atlatl physics brain that murdered the megafauna? Was it climate change? This was the end of the Ice Age. The world was changing. The environment was in chaos. Was it us? Or was it the climate? The answer, the sad, messy human answer, is probably yes. It was both. The megafauna, the Smilodon, the mammoth, they were already stressed. The climate was squeezing them, just like it squeezed Megalodon, just like it squeezed Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. They were vulnerable. And we, Homo sapiens, we were the final push. We were the final cut. We were the last straw. We were the new giant crocodile, arriving in a new lake. Everything. This is the irony. The hunter, the monster that we were so afraid of, the one that forged our brain in the fear fire, we became it. We are the new Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. We are the new 6,000-pound horned god. We are the apex predator that hunts everything. And this is the cost. In becoming the monster, in winning the war, we have inadvertently, accidentally hunted all of our old rivals, our old terrors, our co-stars in this 3-million-year-long play to the brink of extinction. The lion, the tiger, the bear, the modern crocodile. They all are ghosts now. They are refugees, hiding from us. The cycle is complete. So our long, long night is coming to an end. We have journeyed back 65 million years. We have faced the 13-foot-tall, short-faced bear and the 700-pound cave lion. We have stood in the 9-foot-wide shadow of Megalodon. We have sifted through the rogues gallery of every largest animal our planet has ever produced. And now we can finally and definitively answer the question. What was the largest animal to ever hunt humans? The answer is not the largest of all time. The answer is the largest of ours. The answer is the one that was there, the one that was waiting for us, the one with the deadly gaze in the water. The final tally is in. The winner, and our champion of terror, is a 27-foot, 6,000-pound horned Crocodylus, a cousin ship of pure terror, Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni, and its receipt-providing relative, Crocodylus anthropophagus. That is the largest animal. And the human, the target, was you, the 4-foot-tall, 80-pound Homo habilis, our great-great-great-grand ancestor, our family, spelled with a capital F. And the legacy, that is the real story. This was not a monster. This was a sculptor. This 2-million-year-long arms race, this croc test held every single day. It made us. That horned serpent is the dragon that forged the sword of our intelligence. It hunted us, so we learned to plan. It terrified us, so we learned to cooperate. Us became our armor. It drove us into the dark, so we tamed fire to fight it. It haunted our sleep, so it programmed our fears, the shudder, the ghost, and it etched its image so deeply into our new Homo sapiens software that when the literal monster was gone, its ghost remained, as the dragon, the leviathan, the hydra, in every myth, in every culture on Earth. See, thorbjarnarsoni is the dark god that inadvertently created its own replacement. It created the brain that would one day invent the atlatl, the bow, the rifle, and the zoo. And this is the final, profound reflection. We, you, Homo sapiens, you won. You are the apex predator. You are the master of this planet. But for how long? It is a mainstream historical fact that we, as dominant predators, are new. We are new money. We are new on the throne. Our entire reign, our civilization, our 10,000-year-long age of farming and cities is a microscopic, thin, fragile layer on top of 3 million of terror. We were prey for 300 times longer than we have ever been predators. The caveman in your head, the Pliocene software, the lizard brain, that is the default. That is the ancient code. Your iPhone supercomputer brain is just a new app that you just downloaded. Geologists and historians still argue whether our new, instantaneous and violent reign should be its own geologic epoch, the Anthropocene, the age of humans, the age defined by our impact. We have scientific evidence for this everywhere. The Holocene extinction, the sixth extinction, the vanishment of all our old rivals, the lion, the tiger, the bear. That is the proof that we won, that we are the new monster. And this is the dark twist at the end of our campfire story. We went looking for the largest animal to ever hunt humans. We found it in a 27-foot crocodile, but that monster is gone. And today, right now, in this age of humans, what is the largest force, the largest entity, the largest predator that hunts humans on a mass scale? It is, of course, us. The cycle is complete. The prey has become the monster. We are the new Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. We are the dark god now. And that is a story for another night. No word count, transitioning to wind down. And so, the 3-million-year-long story comes to a close. The casebook is shut. The dragon is explained. The ghost has been seen. The Pliocene, that world of fear, is gone. It is a memory locked in rock. The horned crocodile is just a fossil. It is just dust. The shudder you feel, the Crocodylus module, it's just an echo. It's an old program running on new hardware. It's just a story that we survived. And now, the night is not a terror. The night is quiet. The darkness is not a threat. The darkness is gentle. The circle of fire that your ancestors fought for, you have inherited. It is your bedroom. It is your safe place. The only monster here is the monster of sleep, waiting to pull you down into the deep, dark quiet of dreams. The dark water of the Pliocene is gone. The only dark water is the shadow in the corner of your room. And it is not a place for fear. It is a place for rest. So, dim the fire. Let the echoes fade. Let the ghost dissolve. The 3-million-year watch is over. You are safe. You can rest.